This episode of Kind of Funny Gamescast is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. Their mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. They achieve this by supporting a more sustainable food system, setting the highest standards for ingredients, and building a community of home chefs. Not all ingredients are created equal. Fresh, high-quality ingredients make a real difference, so it's important to know where your food comes from. Greg Miller is all about it, as you might have seen from his hashtag Cooking with Greggy series. To this day, he swears by that buffalo chicken sando. Here's a little taste, see what I did there, of upcoming meals: spicy shrimp, pork chops, and garlic piccata mushroom and chipotle pepper enchiladas with lime sour cream. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/gamecast. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. That's blueapron.com/gamecast. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode 104 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. As always, I'm Tim Gettys, joined by the coolest dudes in video games, Colin Moriarty and Greg Miller. Hey. The Gamescast, as always, brought to you by Patreon producer Steven Insler. I want to meet you one day, Steven. I want to give you a firm handshake. At least the firm is like
you owe him. You owe him a firm hand job.
I do.
And for as long as he
squeeze it, you can squeeze it really hard.
As long as he's been doing Patreon producing, he needs something special.
Yeah, I imagine he's doing some seducing his day as well. He's learned from Nick Scarpino. And also, thank you all for supporting us at the $20 above level over on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames for the month of December. I think it was. You did good. You did good. Thank you. So
y'all done the thing. There's your names. Congratulations.
Things are happening. And also, for probably one of the last times we'll have to say this, Kind of Funny Live 2 is available for all supporters on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames at $1 or above. It'll go free to everybody on February 6th. Thank you for all the kind words so far, for all the people that have seen it. Many people have seen it. 15,000 people, most that have ever watched something.
That's been exclusive. Nice.
Exclusive. Yeah,
thank you all for your support.
About that.
It seems like you might have wanted that.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we kept you waiting for it.
Maybe
you never know.
Huh?
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
I'm good. It's been a long week. I'm excited to end it. Of course, if you are a patreon.com/kindoffunnygames supporter, sorry that this episode is late. This first topic, as you can tell from the headline, we're going to review Resident Evil 7. It's been a lot of work this week. Everybody's been sick. Everybody's running around doing stuff. I'm excited for the weekend. I'm worn down. And I also just started an iPhone game I'm very stoked about that I want to talk about next week. A Normal Lost Phone, which is totally, I'm like literally, I've been playing this thing for the 5 minutes leading up to this Gamescast because I just got my code for it. And it's hitting all those chords of Emily Was Away.
I love that.
The idea is you open it up and now your phone is this lost phone you found, and now you need to read through this dude's messages to piece it all together to figure out. It's a mystery game. I'm looking forward to it.
I might want to do a Let's Play of this.
Okay.
That could be fun.
Do you have your little dongle here?
Know how things go. Not with me now, but
I'll know the whole mystery then.
I don't want to do it today, but I want to.
All right, well, I'm sorry. Strike while the iron's hot. That's not the Tim Gettys motto.
Not the Tim Gettys motto. No. Colin, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good. I'm hanging in there. It was a very busy week. Colin was right, was basically twice as long as the first episode, so I was really in the weeds with that one, and had some, speaking of Resident Evil 7, Erin works nights now, and I have to watch. She works 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I have to watch Lola, our dog. It's easier to do it at her apartment. So on Monday, I went over there, and we got Resident Evil, and I put it in, started playing it, and then the power all goes out, and then comes back on. And then the power, this happens 4 times that night. And I have to like redo parts of the game over and over again. I'm like, I just keep playing, because I'm like, maybe. So the next day on Tuesday, people come over, and they're like, the transformer is exposed outside and all this kind of stuff. Leading, not you're a transformer.
Hey, I think I found a transformer over here. I work for PG&E.
But the rain's been battering this thing, and the electric's all. So on Tuesday we had no electricity at the house at all, so I couldn't even play.
Jeez.
Then they've turned it back on at night. Then every day they're there. So I really only had. I guess what I'm saying is I had all these. It's almost like the game's excellent, but almost like these bad omens of you're not meant to play this game. Like like I try to play it on Monday, then I go home on Tuesday, I can't play it. Then on Wednesday, I have to edit. Colin was right, and so we have I can't play until the very end of the night. And then yesterday, I stayed up till 3 a.m. playing as far through it as I could.
And I
thought it was so fucking. So how am I doing? I'm fine, but that was a frustrating situation.
It sucks
because I was so excited.
I thought we were going in the opposite direction, where you're like, Aaron works at night, so I'm playing Resident Evil with Lola the dog next to me, and like fucking scary, and like last night was like thunderstorms and rain hitting. I'm like, this is fucking cool. This is the way to do it.
No, she's next to me pawing because there's a blanket and she wants to get under it and she just won't stop doing it until I lift it up so she can go. Sure. So it's a whole kind of thing of a distraction. But I just thought it was kind of an unfortunate time to get Resident Evil 7's considering the edit on Colin was right and then this electrical problem. Everything combined and tried to dissuade me from playing it. But
if it wasn't for Colin Moriarty luck, you'd have no luck at all.
I know.
It's true.
Whatever that means.
So let's get right into it. Resident Evil 7.
Right.
A review / impressions.
Sure.
Greg.
Yeah.
Well, let's go this way. How did you play it?
Sure.
And how much of it did you play?
Okay. I played the first 4.5 hours of what my game clock says at the end, 10 hours of Resident Evil. I played the first 4.5 in VR. I put up Instagram posts and Twitter stuff that I'd gone into the spare bedroom, the old studio, and set up the desk and put all the stuff there. So it's just standing now that we can go in there and play VR games and not have it be a whole rigmarole. Set that up, played the first 4.5 hours there. Really dug the VR experience. I talked about it coming at PSX, coming out of the demo right to our panel. The fact that I used it and I liked it, but I was like, a little bit motion sick. The default way they have it set up of those 30-degree turns set to the right stick really solved a lot of problems for me, where I jumped in and was going and I played those 4.5 hours and did not get sick. And it was like, I'm in this, I'm enjoying this is great. And then it was that Wednesday, came home from work, we booked out a half day to actually play this game to make sure we had time to get through it and everything. Came home and I wanted to be in PJs on the couch. And it sucked because we had gotten it Monday, so I had done Monday night and I had done a little bit on Tuesday in VR. And I liked it and I did enjoy the experience and want to keep going for it. But it was that thing of just like, I want to sprawl out on the couch, have a blanket over me, have Portillo curled up underneath it, and just like chill out and play the game that way. So I played the next 6 hours roughly that way throughout Wednesday and then throughout just last night. It was a similar situation to where Colin is right now in the game. No spoilers. I was probably 30 minutes, maybe even less ahead of where he stopped right now. And then I was like, I bet I'm really close to the end, but I'm tired. I want to stop. And this is on, Wednesday night. And so then I came home last night and 15 minutes, beat the game. I was like, damn it. I hate it when you do that. When you leave just that morsel.
So close.
But it was like 12:30 and I'm like, I got to do the morning show and everything else. I'm not going to get up.
Man, that was the thing that stopped me yesterday because I was up to almost 3 and I knew that I had to get up to do the morning show. So I didn't want to be groggy and whatnot.
Sure.
So about half of it in VR, half of it just
roughly.
PlayStation 4 normal.
Yeah.
Then you beat it.
Yep, beaten.
Cool.
I've beaten it. Yeah.
Colin?
I am 7 hours. My clock says 7 hours and 40 minutes, and it sounds like I'm less than a half an hour away from the end. So maybe I should have just kept going. I think the game. I played it all standard. I had intended on playing it in VR. We were supposed to originally, or the rumor was we were supposed to get it on a Friday, and I was going to be home that entire weekend. So I was intending on playing it through VR at my house. But that shit is so annoying to take back and forth and reconnect and disconnect or whatever. I'm just like, that's fine. I'm just gonna give it a try later on in that and play it.
That's why we got the room now.
Thanks. So I played in the standard way. My first impressions of the game were not good, and the more I played it, the more I really understood it, and the more I liked it. And I think that
100%.
And I think that it's. I think to get some of the bad out of the way, I don't think the game's exceptionally pretty. In fact, I thought the game really looked bad in the beginning. It seemed washed out. We were talking about this. I got some sort of intentional Resident Evil 4 vibes from the beginning of the game. I don't know if anyone else is going to get that or if that was intentional, but it seemed like that way to me with the way it starts and kind of the scenery and the foliage and the interconnected kind of buildings and stuff like that and kind of,
Sure. For me, it was that's where I started in VR, and I don't want to spoil stuff. I think there's some restrictions there on what they want us to talk about. But for me, when I jumped in, that was my first impression of like, fuck yeah, playing in VR started, and I was like, whoa. Oh no, oh man, there's jaggies, and I looked down and like there was this weird thing where when you're looking out and you look down, there's like this mesh of where it would be at your feet where they're clearly trying to make the shadows happen, and it looked like garbage, like, oh fuck, if this is how the whole game's gonna be, uh-oh. But I felt as soon as I got into a house, it looked better. I know what you're talking about in terms of like, it doesn't look amazing, but
yeah. In terms of graphics, I thought the environments look, and I agree with the beginning of the game was a little weird, and there's a reason for that you'll see as you play it. But when you're in the house, I think the environments are really good looking, and I think that especially because the vignette that's constantly going on, where you only are seeing part of the screen. I feel like it really draws your eyes to the environment, and it doesn't look as good as something like, say, PT, but I think that's because that was just a hallway that you're going over and over. For how big this environment is, I was really impressed by it graphically, was totally not impressed by the characters. And
the characters
they look so bad in that environment that it really takes you out of it. And I was just like, fuck, like this is not only just like not good looking, it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, some of these minor complaints aside, I think the things that the game nails and why I think it's a really great game is, I think the pacing is really good, and pacing is not always important in video games. I think it's an overused and overall kind of term. I think it's important in certain games. I think it's important specifically in shooter campaigns, and I think it's important in some other genres, and I think it's very important in survival horror games. And that's pacing and backtracking and all that is the reason why Dead Space is one of the great games of all time, and why I think that Resident Evil, even the original one, and director's cut and remake and all that kind of stuff was so good, because it paced well and it brought you back to places you had been and changes them slightly and increases enemy encounters or anything like that, which I think is really good. And I think Resident Evil 7 really nails that specific part of it. I think the story is kind of nonsense and muddled, and I was a little disappointed in it, but it didn't ruin the game for me. It actually doesn't ruin the game for me at all, in the sense that it really is the ambience and the environmental storytelling that I think is important in these kinds of games, and I think that this game does that very well. I agree with you. Once you're inside the various houses, and I won't get into the weeds of where you are. You're basically in Louisiana, in the bayou, and so you're exploring different locations there, and I think that they do a nice job of making a very ominous and very scary situation come to life, even apart from the story. Like the story is actually kind of secondary to me to
the experience,
the way of just because. There's something to be said. Like when we play a game like The Witcher 3, I'm not playing The Witcher 3 being like, wow, I wish I was Geralt running around slashing, demons or whatever. But when I play a game like this, I'm like, I'm exploring rooms and I'm like, this would be a very interesting and scary situation to be in real life. And
100%.
while that's not possible, it's a little more connected to not an everyday experience, but a real experience where it's like, I'm in this room and I'm looking for ammo, and I'm in this place and I'm looking for this or whatever. I like that, the way that they execute on that. And I think my overall impression of the game is that Resident Evil 7 is a step back in the right direction. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as Resident Evil 4. I don't think it's where it needs to be, but I think that they are getting back to where they need to be. And I'm confident that this game will do well. This game will resonate, and we will get no pun intended. And I think that we will get another one that I think will bring it back and continue to bring it in the direction that it needs to go in. And so I applaud Capcom, because I think this wasn't probably easy or intuitive for them. I think that with 5 and especially with 6, they thought they were doing the right thing, and people were like, you're actually doing the wrong thing. And here are some examples of people doing the right thing, whether people really love Soma, people really love Outlast, and people love PT and all these kinds of things. And so I think that there's a lot of positive stuff to be taken out of there. I think the pacing's right. If it's going to take me about 8.5 hours to beat, I think the length is perfect. Do I have these small complaints about things? Yes, but I think overall, it is a game absolutely worth playing and experiencing.
100%. And I think you nail part that I think we were all talking about, because we all started that first night together, was the fact of when you start it is jarring in a sense, right? And not only that, it's the fact that it seems like it's going to be super easy. And I do think the game, with the exception of one boss fight that stalled me, and I think that's where my game clock ticked up a lot, is that I was like, what the fuck am I doing wrong in this boss fight? Outside of that, it was like, all right, cool, this thing needs a fuse. And you go upstairs, you found a fuse, and you go put it in. And then like there was like things that were that simple and that quick to figure out. And then you start getting introduced to, all right, now there's a snake door and a scorpion door, and you don't know how you're going to find those keys. You're eventually going to find those keys, but you don't have to worry about it now. And you go through, and your world slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger to play in, and then it becomes more, well, fuck, how am I going to double back to that? Oh, and remember that. And then you start finding like the photos that are like the treasure, where you come back here and you find that. Or next time you see this kind of baby's head up there, to look up there, and it'll trigger you have a treasure there and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you in that in the early game, it's very, very, very simple stuff where it's like, here's a key, go right upstairs and do it. But it is once you start seeing all the different doors that you're like, all right, cool, I need to start thinking more with backtracking in mind. And it reminds me of things like Super Metroid and, the Metroidvania style games where I'm like, all right, cool. And it reminded me of what I liked about old Resident Evil games, because even in the other ones, the puzzles were never too crazy. I feel like in 1 through 3, they had more advanced stuff, but in Resident Evil 4, there's only 1 or 2 real like all right, I need to stop here and think about this puzzle. Otherwise, it is pretty much just figure out these things and go. And that's most people's favorite of the Resident Evil games. So I think that this one did a good job in terms of puzzles of never making you feel like you're stupid. But in the beginning, it was a little bit like, all right, here's a blue key. It goes in this blue hole.
And you think that that's what it's going to be. Not to mention the fact that the game is about exploring the environments and picking up pictures and reading diaries. And it's almost jarring in the way that when you first start that game and you start going through those early environments, it is, I mean, there's a giant X over everything you can interact with. So you come in and you immediately know there's 3 things in this room I can interact with. It's going to be hard for them to sneak a key that I'm not going to find and be struggling for an hour to try to figure out where it is.
And so that's why I think that the simple puzzles are actually a guise for guiding you in the right way to get you to see all of the hidden stuff and all the like random little like story elements that they want you to know. And I liked that. I really liked the journey it kind of takes you on. I think the game's great. I constantly wish there was a bit more. Like whether it's more action or more story or more, it just, the things I liked about it, I felt like there was never quite enough of it.
Interesting.
I think a big criticism of this game going into it was like, oh, you guys are just copying Outlast and all these other things that have happened, and this is not the Resident Evil I think of it. This definitely is a Resident Evil game. Like how the story plays out, the cringeworthy dialogue and performance, and just all the puzzles and all the like how the action scenes and boss fights play. Definitely Resident Evil. But at the same time, it is a greatest hits of the last 3 years of horror games.
Sure.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think
don't think it is at all.
They took what Resident Evil and survival horror means in 2017, and they added a level of polish to it that I think those other games lack.
Sure.
Overall, what I also thought was surprising and a good thing is a couple weeks ago on Gamescast I was complaining about how I think that if Resident Evil doubles down on this PT like super vague, you need to beat the demo 10 different times and do all these weird ass things that you will never know without going online and finding FAQ.
Yeah,
that's a bad look. This game's not that at all. This game is totally, you're playing this game. You do not need to know all this weird shit. Everything you need to know is able to be understood from playing it.
What's interesting though is the fact of, I agree with you. Like I ran through this game and except for the one boss fight, I wasn't frustrated. I had a great time. There's a definitive moment for me where I think it's after you beat the second boss, you know what I mean? And I was running out of that area and I was like, and it was backtracking and I was like, this is fucking Resident Evil. This is so Resident Evil. And like up until that point, it was like piecing it all together and figuring out what they were going for and what they were striving for. In that moment, I was like, this is awesome and this is Resident Evil and that's great. I forget where I was going before I said that. What was the last thing you gave me?
Well, all right. I'll just jump in and to Tim's point. I think it's an interesting point is that the game seems self-contained and explains everything. Yet one of the things that I thought was very interesting about it and struck me actually like towards the end of my game time yesterday was I'm very thorough when I play games like this. And I think a lot of people are, but I really probably add a significant amount of time to my games typically because of my kind of OCD nature of really looking in every corner of a game. And that's why The Last of Us took me like 18 hours to beat and it took other people like 12 because I was just going in every corner. And there are 2 kinds of collectibles in the game. One is an antique coins, which have an interesting use in the game. And the other are these bobbleheads. And I was very thorough. I found more than half of
They also count files.
And files. I was very thorough in looking for these things, yet only walked away with 10 or 11 antique coins and maybe half of the bobbleheads. And that was one of the things that really intrigued me where I was like, where the fuck are the rest of these? Like I thought I left no stone unturned. And when I got towards the end of the game, and I guess I won't say much more than that, there's an isolation there where you're gone, you can't get those things anymore. And I'm like, well, where the fuck are they? And that actually got me really excited because I'm like, are there like literal, there must be parts of the map I didn't even see, and I don't know how that's possible because because I was so thorough. So that was what really got me excited about it. Is yes, you can run through the game. There is a trophy for beating the game in 4 hours or less, and because our friend Brian at PS4 Trophies taught me the trick about how to see trophies for a game that are not online yet. So I went and looked. And you basically have to make an account and stay offline and stuff like that, and you can see them. And I looked, and there's a trophy for beating the game in under 4 hours. So you can beat the game very quickly. Yet I didn't even exhibit, I guess what I'm saying, enough thoroughness to be able to find everything. And that was what was so exciting and why, if I didn't have other games to play, and I do unfortunately, so I'm not going to play Resident Evil 7 again, I would be very excited if I bought the game, or this is a game I was sitting with for a few weeks, to go back and figure out what the fuck I missed.
Yeah, and even with us, like I was surprised this morning to be talking to you about the game because there was so much things you were telling me that I was like,
that's what I was driving at originally, is the fact that, we went through and we think we saw it and we felt like it was cohesive. But in that boss fight I got stuck at, I died at a weird spot when it should have ended, but I should have ended the boss fight, but I died instead of doing it because something happened. And I hit up a colleague and was like, hey, do you have a strategy for this? Am I doing it wrong? And explained what just happened. And she was like, oh, only 25%. I was told that only 25% of players will ever see what you saw there. And when I went back and beat that boss, I didn't get that. I didn't get that again. So there are apparently like different little things going on, let alone a few choices. And then for what you're talking about, yeah, like looking at my at the end, it throws your stats up. I took a photo, right? Like I got half of the bobbleheads. I'm short 7 antique coins, and I'm short, it looks like 4 files. And it is that thing of like, it seems when you first start like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. And so, yeah, what did I miss? Where did I not see that stuff?
And I guess it's not fair for me to say that all of that stuff doesn't exist and it isn't here, because I mean, who will know until months after release when people have really like figured out all the different things you can do. But what I'm saying is, playing the demos that they released, I played through it, and in no uncertain terms was not really satisfied with how I played it, because nothing ended up really happening. And so it's like, to play it the right way, I needed to know all these weird things. And some of them were really weird. Stand here for 10 seconds, then move there and do that. And it's like, this game doesn't feel like it has that. It felt like even just playing it the way I wanted to play it was a real game. And whatever way you guys are playing is also a real game.
Sure.
So.
And that's the thing you talked about. And you talk about pacing and you talked about action stuff. I feel like it ramps that up really well too, where there's a tipping point towards the very end where it was like, all right, cool. And suddenly I noticed that I had all this ammo, and then they introduce a new gun that they give you straight up. And it was like, all right, it's fucking on now. And you're like, just fucking taking things on and going at them and going headlong, where it was forever, being scared, hiding from enemies, like being, trying to figure it out. And for me, running. They introduced some enemy types at the end where it's just like, nope, fuck this. I don't need to fight you. So I'll just dodge around you, save my ammo, and go to the next thing.
I guess for me, when I say action, I don't even necessarily mean like fighting them, because the gunplay, at least from everything I've experienced, has been horrible in this game. And I never feel like I'm actually getting anything done, and it is just pushing away. Which is fine. Like, I get it. It's a zombie game, survival horror, whatever. But I never really felt like my guns have been more effective than a melee weapon I had, or just pushing them away. So it really kind of just feels like hitting, running is the action of it.
Sure.
When I mean action, I'm talking about the hide and seek stuff. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
There's nothing more tense. Like, I feel like the game is never better than when there is someone chasing you and you're hiding from them and running and like doing the whole game. To me, those are the action scenes, and like those are so well choreographed and so awesome. When I get caught, I feel like I fucked up.
Yeah.
And having to do the trial and error over and over again until you figure out exactly where you're supposed to be hiding, it never felt like, oh, I have to do this again. It was always like,
I'm gonna get this
bitch.
And that was the thing, even with the boss fight that I got stuck at, where I was like, I was frustrated for sure, but it was mainly like, I feel like I'm burning so much time. I took this afternoon off to get this done, and here I am stuck at this thing. I'll have to tell you, is the pillar, you're running around the pillar. This is what I was describing to Tim earlier. But in what you're talking about with the hide and seek and all that jazz, like in VR, I feel like that was amplified so much more. But now granted, I feel like my opinion on that might be skewed because I was starting, and obviously by the end of this game, like I said, you feel powerful, it's tricks and whatever. But when you're creeping around trying not to be found, and you hear them and they're talking and they're calling out to Ethan and all this different stuff, it did make me like goosebump, you know what I mean? Especially when it was like, I'm gonna fucking run for it, and I'm running and I know that they're chasing me too. It's like fuck. Like, it was intense for sure. Yeah,
so you bring up an interesting thing in terms of how scary this game is. I feel like pretty quickly the game goes from being super scary to, oh, I understand the rules of this. Like, this house can't scare me anymore, which is a good thing, I think, because you do kind of, not only as a character become more powerful, but as a person, you're like, you're not going to get me. Like, I know I'm safe walking through this door, and very rarely is there the jump scares.
Yeah.
I thought they would rely way more heavily on the cheap tactics, but they didn't. Like, this game is scary because of how the characters interact with you, and not knowing exactly what you're going to face in terms of challenge and stuff, not in terms of like random ghost girls popping up with like long hair.
Yeah.
But I get scared easily when it comes to games, and especially when it comes to jump scares and stuff. So I can't even imagine playing this game in VR. You having played half of it in VR and half in just normal, do you think VR is the definitive way to play it?
I think so. I think I bit on the hook earlier, you know what I mean, in terms of like when we came in and you were like, it's got a weird opening, whatever, and I remember you saying there's something wrong with this game. Like, for me, being immersed in it, I think I got over, like, the visuals, like I said, they're like, why is there this thing? But when I got in the house, whatever, it's got that VR screen door effect, so I immediately, I'm not looking at that anymore and being like, this doesn't look like a PlayStation. I'm like, it's a VR game and whatever, I'm running around. And same thing with gunplay, where I mean, shout out. I think for sure gunplay in VR feels better than it does in that, because it was all of a sudden of just like, it's the same thing as always. You pull with L2 to bring it up and then R2 to fire, but then you're aiming with where you look and the hand's out in front of you doing this or whatever. And so like the first fight you have with somebody where you shoot them and you have a gun or whatever, and it was like boom, and I was like, what? Oh fuck, oh my, and it felt so satisfying to put it to their head and like back off and you know what I mean? Like that was awesome. And then jumping into it and playing the next 2 nights in VR and then 2 nights or 2 days, whatever, just playing through normally. I think it's that weird thing again. I'm adjusted to it. I know what I'm getting into, but there was the normal thing of just like, all right, cool. I'm petting Portillo and I've got my phone and I'm pausing it now and I'm talking to Jen and you know what I mean? Like, whereas when I was just that and you pull it off and it's dark outside and you're in a dark room because you didn't turn on the light. It was like, that's fucking cool. And it is so immersive in that way. And like, I was in that house and that was fun.
Is this the example of what VR games can be?
I think it's a step in the right direction for that. I don't think it nails everything, of course. Like I said, like the fact that I get in there and immediately doesn't look that great. You're like, well, this is a fucking letdown. And then I start thinking like, what would it look like on Oculus? And well, I need a rig. And you know what I mean? All that jazz. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. Is it I think it's an example for hardcore gamers of like what this could be. And I think it's a testament to how good the game is that it doesn't miss a step. That was my other concern, one way or the other, that I would put on VR. You guys would play it normal, and then you'd love it or hate it, and then I'd be the opposite side of the coin. And I think that it adds something to it, but like being able to take it off and play it 2 nights normally, I was like, I still loved it, and I'm still very intrigued about going back and playing it again and seeing how hard the new difficulty is and all this. And like, there's a definitive choice I'd like to make again and see if how differently it plays out the other side, because I don't know how they really would wrap them together.
I think some of the other, some other critiques and also props to the game. I think one of the cool things the game does is because we were saying there is a lot of contemporary horror games within this game, and I think one of the cool things that they did was show a lot of restraint with the way you can build your character, because that's not what really these games are about. But in modern gaming, people feel like they don't have agency if they aren't able to upgrade themselves and stuff, and you can't really do that in this game, which I think is cool. That the way you upgrade yourself or the way you make yourself stronger is I think clever. Like finding the antique coins and using them as currency to buy special things. I saved them up so I can buy a Magnum pistol, for instance. Which I think was pretty cool. You find backpacks that give you more storage space,
inventory slots,
and you find these, like you were saying, the pictures that show you different treasures of things, like how you can use kind of these broken items. You don't really know how to use them and stuff like that. So I think that they're like, they don't say like, you're level 2 now and your hit points are up and stuff like that. I think that they showed a lot of restraint there as well. I will say one critique I have is that I found the house scary and the certain jump scares scary. The characters grab you sometimes, and there's like a perspective. Because the game is in first person, it removes the ability of you to really see your surroundings the way you would in a third person Resident Evil game, which is the way we're used to playing them. And so that changes the way you're scared in the game, and I think that can't be understated. The game feels different because it is a different kind of Resident Evil game. But I didn't find the creatures or anyone scary. Like that was one of the things that I was disappointed in. Like the zombie they're not really zombies, but like these black mold creatures or whatever. I mean, these aren't scary at all. It's scary when they get near you and you're taking damage, and I didn't find the family particularly scary either. The only character that I thought was scary, and I don't think it's really a spoiler, is there's a woman in a wheelchair that just
you'll come out of areas.
And I literally said, I was playing last night. Use the key to get through a door, and she's just there, and I'm like, oh, why are you here? Like, like what are you doing here? Like what? Like that was
did you try to shoot her and everything? Like you can't bring your gun up to her. I'm like, fuck, I don't like this woman at all.
Yeah, it's super unsettling, and I think that was one of the cool things about the game was just these very unsettling, seemingly inconsequential to the plot kind of things that they do to keep you unsettled. And I think that was one of the major things that the game did very well was to continue continue to build the pacing. And even though I think they fell woefully short with stories and with characters, and I think they did, I don't know that Resident Evil really ever nailed that stuff to begin with.
I was going to say, I've never enjoyed a Resident Evil story, but in terms of like, first off, environmental story, and then just creeping you out. Like when you've been there too, I think. It isn't a big spoiler, but when you finally get the key that'll allow you to go into the kids' room or whatever, and you start reading all the notes and diary entries he left around there about what's happening in the attic, you're like, Jesus fucking Christ. Man. And you go up there and it's like, all right, what's going to happen? And it's just fucking unsettling and creepy, and this is what that world is.
There's something about it though, right? Like I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but there's something pseudo immersive about playing a game like this, where like, especially with the save rooms,
How nostalgic was it? With the music.
Yeah,
and all that? I was like,
it was very nostalgic.
This is Resident Evil.
But at the same time, like if you put yourself in that character's position, like I shut the door in the save room. There's like a desk and like a couch. You could potentially, like, you can't do this in the game, but it's like you can like take some respite here. Like you can sleep a little bit, and maybe there's some food. And that, like you kind of like put yourself in that place, and you're like, there's a cool. There's something about like that the structure of the game that makes you feel like you're progressing. It makes you feel like you're safe at times. Makes you feel like you're super exposed at times. And I think that's
survival horror in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think that's what they needed to do, man. We need games like this from AAA publishers, and this is the first one we've got. And I really will say this is the first. You know, people love The Evil Within, and I think that's probably the last one we ever got of this caliber, this production caliber. Since it's been a while, and hopefully this encourages people to get, not only Capcom to stick with it, but for others to get involved as well.
And do new things with your franchises.
Yeah.
It's Resident Evil 7, but it feels like a new game except for like these callbacks and nostalgia pickups and stuff.
What do you think about the characters?
I mean, the family's super crazy rednecks and something's going on, right? And they're scary in the way of like, I'm talking about where like, when the father is chasing you and he fucking punches through that wall the first time when you're running the door, I was like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like the goosebumps. But the more you're around them, the less scary they become. And then because like the old woman, right, is like not the old woman, but his wife. I want to say Marjorie. Marguerite.
Yeah.
Her with her lantern, and like when she does her jump scare and you go backwards, right? That whole thing was like, man, this is disempowering, and how do I, it's like, and then it's just like, oh, brute force my way through it, but okay, cool. But it is like, oh, fuck, like this is, I wasn't scared like, ugh, but like it was, there's something to them, but they're just creepy ass redneck people.
Yeah, see, for me, I agree with you in the fact the molded and all the like scary
well,
insects and shit.
Those are the guys who legitimately where I was in the beginning, and I was like, wait, like especially when you go to like the Great Hall area with the dual staircases, you have to keep crossing by. There's those two that are there. I would just run to the front. All right, you're gonna go down that staircase. All right, run up here, run by you, run, and then that's why like at the end there's like a gauntlet of them. And it's like just see you guys, whatever, come at me. I'll hug the wall. You'll come to that side of the wall, and I'll run around you. And I have like 600 fucking rounds by the end of this.
Yeah, exactly. I think that we're obviously desensitized to like those type of creatures and all that shit, whether it's from movies or games. But I thought the family was really creepy and really scary, and I'm disappointed in the fact that like there's so much supernatural stuff, and I think that that is a big problem I had with the game, and that's I think a very personal take on it. But the things that scared me most about this game is when it wasn't supernatural. So like walking over to the piano and then the thing closing, I'm like, why? Like, why did that happen in the context of this world? Like, that was literally just to try to scare me. Like, but that doesn't make sense. There isn't ghosts, Well,
I think that there's like some sort of maybe relationship between, one of the things I was thinking about was that this is only the third game I think that I've ever played that takes place in the Bayou. The other two being Mafia 3 and Infamous 2.
Yeah.
There's something supernatural and voodoo-like about that area where I thought that, I was thinking about Parasite Eve a lot for some reason, in the sense that Parasite Eve takes place in a city. It's very corporate driven. There's some supernatural element to it, but it really isn't. It's more like that late 90s kind of like evil corporation kind of shit, like Resident Evil did. And that made sense to me in that particular thing because it's a very urban, sterile environment. And then when you find yourself in this very bayou-ish fucking swampland, well, then the supernatural thing made more sense to me, and so I liked it as well. Like I liked it. I liked that part of it. But the one complaint I have in that nature and is that I just feel like for as good as the pacing is with the plot and for as good as the pacing is in getting you through environments, I did feel a little disappointed at times that I was fighting too much. I felt like I became, we talk about desensitization. I was desensitized from fighting any of these enemies at the end when I'm like, why do they keep coming at me? Like, it's more scary when one of them just pops out and you don't know and you're killing him, and then you're like looking around, is there like anyone else? And you're like, as opposed to like 5 of them coming at you, I'm like, this isn't really the genetic DNA of Resident Evil. And so for as much as they got back to that in some sense, or in a lot of senses, I think that there were actually too many fights and too many enemies. And I will say that I thought the boss fight, I never look forward to boss fights in these games. That's another thing, is like I always hate them. So I don't know if that's just me or whatever, but I feel like they break up the tenor of the game. Like, you're safe and you're kind of plodding through, and suddenly a big ass monster comes and can kill you all, and then you kill him, and then everything's back. And I know that that's the way a lot of games are paced, but in this particular kind of genre, I feel like they would be better served to have none of that shit. And I think that the game would be way scary and way more unsettling that way.
As somebody, I always talked about this on our shows when we talk about, growing up and nostalgia and all that stuff. I always should have loved Resident Evil. Like, I'm such a zombie guy, you know what I mean? It's my favorite horror movie. I own a whole bunch of them, and I really enjoy watching them. But Resident Evil never clicked for me because the controls, and then also the story where it always was, I was always like, this is fucking awesome. You have this town overrun by zombies. Let's make the game, oh, no, now we got this fucking nemesis, and now we got these dolls. And it's like, keep it simple, stupid is always, like what you're taught when you start writing. Keep it simple, stupid in this as well. And that's the one thing I appreciate the restraint for here in Resident Evil 7 is the fact that it is the family. And I was like, okay, cool. And they mutate and they do things. All right, whatever. And then it was like, all right, fuck. These molded characters. Are we getting on? Am I going to? Okay, no, there's a few different types of the molded characters, but not where it's like I'm getting a new fucking one every time that's doing something crazy. They are just the robots for me to get around and go do something else and have to worry about it. And I did appreciate the fact of in the house in certain areas, right, where if I want to, when they first get introduced and like you have to deal with them, you shoot them and they're dead and it's like great. And then I'm like, I leave a room and I come back towards that room. I'm like, are these motherfuckers going to respawn? Are they going to be eating all my bullets? And you go back and they don't. I'm like, all right, cool. This is all right. Good restraint on you. I was afraid this was going to get annoying, and so now they're just minor inconveniences when they pop up. And you can outthink them. You can kill them. You can do whatever you want. But as somebody who always wanted to save their ammo for that boss fight, I never did when I could.
Yeah, no. And the thing that I really liked about the game was the VHS mechanic.
Yes.
I think that it might be my favorite part of the whole experience.
Explain this in case people don't know.
So the demos were, if for anybody who played the demos, the VHS tape is a very important part where you put it in, you play through the part of the guys going through doing the kind of like Ghost House documentary style thing, right? That is in this game. Twist a little bit. You actually play the different perspective of it, and then later in the game, there's multiple VHS tapes in this game. You can go find a TV with VCR and put it in. And when you put it in, you play through whatever was recorded on it. So it's a really kind of unique, interesting way to do flashbacks.
Yeah.
And I think especially in the first person, they added the whole like VHS grain filters and all that. And it's super immersive, and it's I think really cool way to tell the story and like not have it just be a cutscene, but actually have you be able to play these really cool moments and have it make sense narratively, where it's not. You could be in the exact same location, but you're learning something that you're going to need to know in the present time, and it's cool.
It was a great way to break it up because it was like you're doing the same thing, running around the same section of a house, and then suddenly you find the tape, you pop the tape in, and you're experiencing from a different place, and it's a room that you will later find out you're going to get to eventually, and then what you know will help you beat it faster, get through it quicker, or just have some kind of idea of where you are and why this matters.
Any closing words on Resident Evil 7?
I mean, for me, and I know for a fact that I'm so going to be the minority on this, but as somebody who never really dug Resident Evil 4, like this is my favorite Resident Evil. Like Resident Evil 4 I played through, but I was always annoyed with like shooting or possessed people, parasites in the head, and how I didn't feel as accurate. And I never ever liked the controls. And again, here the controls aren't perfect. The boss battle I struggled with was one of the reasons of like, oh, he's coming at me. Oh, fuck, god damn it, fucking run. And then I also with some of the weapons, I had a really hard time telling, am I running? Am I not running? I'm hitting it, and it doesn't feel, even running is just a little bit faster than what it was. All that aside, it was my favorite Resident Evil. I really, really, really dug it.
I think that there are certainly better survival horror games in the wild, and even in my opinion, even in the Resident Evil franchise, I think that there are definitely better games. But Resident Evil 7 is great, and is the beginning of a return to form for the franchise that it desperately needs, and that we as gamers desperately need, because this is such a special and important genre. And I do believe that as games become more powerful and become more powerful narrative storytelling devices, that games like this will resonate most. It's similar to the very dystopian end of the world, apocalyptic kind of shit that we see all over television and the movies today that have really come into prominence, notably with The Walking Dead, but certainly long before that with some other more niche shows. I think that that's a powerful way to tell a story, and I think Capcom's a powerful teller of those kinds of stories when their energies are put in the right direction. And I think that this is a great first step in that, and I think that it's a game that people should play.
I think it's really good. Definitely think it's worth playing, even if it's not in VR, which is the thing that I find surprising, is I thought it was going to be a game you either need to play in VR or don't, but having just played it normally, it feels like a AAA experience. It has a lot of issues, but overall, very solid game, and it's worth playing just for the experience. Next topic. I got to play Nintendo Switch.
You did?
I did.
1 week ago today, you were in New York playing it.
I was. Me and Big Kev Dog. Taking on the big city.
Yeah.
So this is the first time officially we're going really deep into my whole experience. We talked a little bit about it on the Kind of Funny Morning show. But I wanted to give my impressions on everything they had at the event itself.
How was the food?
The food at the event was not good.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, not good.
Okay.
They did have Nintendo Switch water.
Oh, yeah.
There's a
Did you
little
see
water
somebody who's
bottle
selling
in
it on
and
eBay
people
for
sell-
$100?
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
They had Nintendo Switch cookies
Yeah.
that they gave. Kevin ate it. I didn't eat it.
Because it had all that like
one's
fondant
surprised.
on it. You're
Yeah.
like, this is
This
why would
shit's
I want to
fucking
eat this?
disgusting. Who likes fondant?
Nobody.
Nobody.
That's
Why?
what you make the cake, you make the cookie with the fondant, then it's a work of art, and I'm never gonna eat it.
Yeah, I'm not down. Not down at all. But overall, the Nintendo Switch event in New York was a total 180 from the disaster that was the presentation.
The press conference.
Oh, man. That presentation was so bad. But the next day, it was so weird because, like, you go in, and granted, the difference being very Japanese event, this event, in New York,
Right.
Reggie's there. And that's something that's interesting about the presentation is that so many of the faces we saw are people we've never really seen before. And they kind of shied away from the Reggies and the,
Sure.
Anumas. Like, sure, they had their moments, but it was interesting to see Reggie speak. That they kicked off the New York event with Reggie coming out and giving this like 20-minute conversation. He was just like, yo, we're going to be here real quick. I want to wrap up things we announced. I want to tell you some new stuff. I want to get you guys playing the games because I want to get your hand ASAP. And it was just such a different take because I'm like, where was this? Like, why didn't you just directly tell people the information of boom, 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 bam? Because all of a sudden it sounds more impressive when you do that. But I was most excited when they let us go play whatever games we want. I walk in, I was like, there's a fair amount of games here playable. I thought it was going to be like closer to like 5, but they ended up being like 15 or
Wow.
so playable games. They had ARMS, Zelda, Splatoon 2, Snipperclips, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Fast Remix, Super Bomberman R, Puyo Puyo Tetris, Sonic Mania, Ultra Street Fighter 2, 1-2 Switch, Has Been Heroes, Disgaea 5, Just Dance 2017, and Skylanders Imaginators. Now, of those, I played about 10 of them.
Lots of Let's Plays up on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames.
Yes, there is. The ones I did not play were 1-2 Switch, Has Been Heroes, Disgaea 5, Just Dance 2017, and Skylanders Imaginators. In addition to that, they had a Mario Odyssey like giant trailer loop playing where it just said Super Mario Odyssey Fall or Holiday 2017, and there's just the trailer over and over and over. And like a weird thing where you could put Mario's hat on.
I saw
with
that and take
little-
photos with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, whatever. At least it was there.
His hat has eyes.
But starting off with the games I didn't play, so 1-2 Switch,
Mm.
wanted to play it. It actually had one of the biggest lines of anything.
Okay.
And I think it's because they had like specific booths just for it, and like they had a bunch of dumbass gimmicky costumes that you
Yeah,
could
I
put
saw
on.
Dan Reichert and Jeff Gersman having the cowboy hats on as they were doing the draw game.
Yeah, so it's that was definitely like the kind of the dumb PR area of the event, where it's like there's all the people like, come on, have fun, let's put on costumes.
How many ice cubes are in this glass?
Exactly. So we didn't get to play that, but looking back on it, I actually regret that because that is the one game that really showed off the HD Rumble. So I wish that I had the chance to do that, because from speaking to everybody after, they were like, oh shit, like, no, you should have definitely tried that for the different mini games and stuff they have. People seem to think that game is pretty good based on people that have actually played it.
Yeah.
I kind of wrote it off, just like I'm sure many people did, as, it's just more Nintendo bullshit party game stuff.
And I feel like that's what is. I mean, if people played it and they liked it, fine. But I feel like that still is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Cool. We got it. We played Zelda for a while. Now let's screw around with this real quick. All right. Cool. We did the quick draw on the morning show. Bye. That's
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Exactly. I think that what they're going for, and I appreciate it, is they are going for more of a Jackbox party pack feel, or like a Cards Against Humanity. Like, it's less we play and we sports and like that stuff, where it's more like
there's a game to
your
learn.
whole family can play this. This is not about family as much as it's about a party. Like, this is like you're drunk with your friends, we're milking cows, because it was really funny to see people play. How long does that humor last? Probably not too long, but depending on how many mini games there are. Again, didn't play it, not standing up for it, but everybody that played it seemed to be really into it.
It does seem like, like we are talking about when you get VR, what game are you going to show?
Exactly.
Hey, cool, you're here for a few beers, and oh yeah, I have a Switch. Yeah, we'll play Kart in a second. Well, look at this. We're milking cows. Great. All right, Kart.
Yep,
Plug in the
back
TV.
to the cart. Has Been Heroes. Looks like a Colin game, if I've ever damn seen one. I didn't have time to play it, but it looks like a indie Vita game. It's coming to PS4, Xbox One, and Switch at the same time, sometime later in this year. It's a Sky of 5, not my type of game. Didn't play it. Just Dance 2017. It's the same setup we've seen for 6 years now.
But now it's got HD Rumble.
Where there's like 6 girls just like standing there. Come on, dance with me. And it's like no one's fucking doing the demo.
Kev's like, I'll see you guys later. Walked in. 40 minutes later, came sweating.
But then they always get the one guy to go play. And it's just like one random ass games journalist playing with like these 6 super hot girls. They're all dads. And he's just like, I'm like, oh,
puffing,
man,
trying to keep it up, pants falling down.
Because it's like, he doesn't even look like he's having fun. He doesn't want to be there. For the people that are playing and having fun, good for you. But oh, man, you just got roped into it. No, no one's happy about that.
The siren song.
Oh, so bad. And the Skylanders, Imaginators, I didn't need to play.
Skylanders already out,
Yeah, I was just there. Whatever. I didn't play it, but I did use Skylanders as an excuse to be able to hold the controller more.
Nice.
You know?
You walked by, you're like, what? What demo has nobody? Oh, Skylanders. Yeah, great. Oh, I'm a big fan. I got the Crash amiibo too.
Yeah,
Thanks. All right, bye. No, you didn't even start it, sir.
That's pretty much exactly what it is. And it's always hard at these events because the people give so much pressure.
Sure,
you know, it's like they want you to play the game how they want you to do the demo, and it's just like, oh my god,
so annoying. That's why I hate these events. I hate them.
That's why I like going up to him and hitting the PlayStation button, going to check true. No, you can't. I'm already here. Just let me see. It's fine, sir.
Just let it happen. And we experienced that a lot. Like where there was a lot of times where I'm like, all right, I just want to use the Joy-Cons, or I just want to play on the thing, and they're like, no, for this demo, you're doing it like this, and it's just like.
Yo, fuck off, let me play.
And I think that's another thing with the Switch, because there's so many different control options. So many of the demos had different controllers, and like that's what we were doing today.
Yeah,
you can go somewhere else, and I was just like, all right, cool. I guess I'll play by your rules. But Imaginators was one of the only systems to have the. I don't even know what they're calling it, but I guess this the Switch standard, where it's like the
screen and the Joy-Cons attached to it.
Attached. I don't know. Does that have a proper name, or is that just the Nintendo
screen?
Switch? Like when
that configuration,
because I keep calling it gamepad, but it's not gamepad. But whatever. So I did that to be able to.
I'll look into it for you.
Anyway, so those are games I did not play. Games I did play, ARMS, super good compared to
super good
to what. Yeah, it's not going to be great. It's not going to be a system seller. It's not going to be a game that people are playing for years on end. But I do think that it has a Splatoon-like quality to it, where all of the industry is going to look at it and be like, all right, here's this new IP, but like, classic Nintendo, this looks like nothing. And then it actually has a cult following afterwards, and it's a great game that people really bite into. There's something about the characters in this game, playing it, that there's a personality where I'm like, all right, this kind of reminds me of a combination of them nailing the motion controls. So it's like Wii boxing, but there's depth behind it. So it's kind of like the Wii Punch-Out game, but with more precise controls, with the being able to turn your hands and all that, combined with the like characters of Overwatch and like really focusing on them as the main focal point of the game.
Sure. With
something like Smash Brothers, that it's like, all right, cool, well, let's just all get together and play it. So adding those things together, I'm like, there's definitely something there, way more than just, we're going to punch each other.
It's not Wii boxing, because when they debuted, we're all like, is this Wii boxing again?
Yeah, and I think in the same way when Splatoon was debuted, it was just like, this is their answer to Call of Duty. Like it's real easy to be snarky about it. And again, I don't think it's going to set the world on fire, but I do think it's going to be way more impressive than people give it credit for. Playing it, I'm amazed at how intuitive it was. I did the Let's Play with Jimmy Wong, and you can even see in the video, like, we wrap our heads around the controls and understand how to do things that at least feel advanced way faster than I'd imagine in other like fighting games or in other motion controlled based things. Because like for so long, even with Wii Motion Plus, it was fighting against the controls to get it to do what you wanted to do.
Sure.
But you can see in the Let's Play, when I want to throw, which is quite often, as a lot of people in the comments have pointed out, I was meaning to do that. I saw he wasn't blocking against throws, so I kept going with that. There wasn't any single time that it didn't throw when I wanted to throw. There wasn't any time where I didn't move or punch when I wanted to. So I was like, oh shit. Like, is it sad that I'm giving a game credit for working? A little bit, yeah.
When it comes to motion controls, nah.
But yeah, so I'm very happy that the game works, and also it was said that you can play the game without motion controls. I think that is really where the game's going to take off.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot better that way. I think in terms of competitive play, but it's fun with the motion controls, and I do think that it's a perfect example of a game that when your friends come over to show off the Switch and just like It was a fun thing. Pokken was the other game I wanted to compare it to earlier in terms of the view
Perspective
of playing. Yeah.
Real quick, it seems like Nintendo officially calling what you were talking about handheld mode.
Handheld mode.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. Arms and going back to the characters, these characters are going to be in Smash Bros. And I think that that's a good sign of how much Nintendo is banking on this. Like, I really believe that these are characters that could last for a while. And it's cool that they're making new IP with new Nintendo characters because, you know, everybody gets so upset at them relying on the same cast over and over and over. So at least they're trying. Zelda, obviously, it's fucking fantastic. I can't believe that we're going to play it in less than 6 weeks. Be able to just get lost in that world. And it's a damn big world. So much so that playing it on the handheld mode, I'm like, I don't know if I need this handheld. It's freaking crazy. Like, the graphics 720 on the screen, no one should be complaining about this. Things look great on the screen. There's no game I saw playing that I'm like, I wish the resolution was higher.
Yeah.
But with Zelda, it's pretty cramped on such a small screen.
Can you read stuff? Is that the problem?
The reading's fine, but it's like having Link and just seeing the world. It's just like, it's a little overbearing. I definitely preferred playing it on the TV. I got to play Zelda in the most configurations out of any other game where I played in handheld mode. I got to play with the Joy Grip controller on the thing, and I played with the 2 Joy-Cons on the screen. And all the control options felt great. None of them felt any noticeably better or worse than the others for Zelda. This game, it really does look special. It looks like it's going to be remembered very fondly.
It looks like a return to Zelda form.
Okay. Yeah. Having said that, though, it is Zelda through and through. I appreciate that the game starts off, there's no tutorial, that you just jump in and it's just like, holy shit, like this is a very un-Nintendo move. You know, it's like this is
not beating you over the head.
What we want from a Zelda game.
And this is the same demo from E3, so it's not like you start with your sword, right? You don't get a wood sword and a wood shield and all that garbage.
Same demo from E3, but now playing on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So I played it before on Wii U. So now I didn't notice the difference.
Obviously.
Just playing. There's a whole bunch of graphics comparisons on the internet where you can see like, oh shit, it does look substantially better on Switch, but I didn't notice playing at all. I got to play the same demo, but I also got to do a Let's Play with a Nintendo dev of the section right after the demo, but they wouldn't let me play that part.
Sure.
So I saw a little bit more of that. I feel like people aren't talking about the cons of Breath of the Wild as much as they should be. The controls are pretty bad. Like
you were worried about this being when you started talking to me about it. I think over lunch we were talking about it being antiquated like Last Guardian, right?
Yeah, I mean it definitely gives me Last Guardian vibes. Jump is with triangle or whatever the top button is.
Yeah.
I'm just used to DualShock. And the analog control never felt quite as fluid as I wanted it to. Like when you play a Mario game, you just believe that the game is doing exactly what you want to. It's so buttery smooth and just like every single turn is just right.
Yeah.
Zelda's always been great, but not exactly perfect, but it never needed to be. There's something about this game that playing it, I was just like, man, like it feels kind of clunky. There's a staircase I was trying to go down and I kept getting stuck in the corner. And I'm just like, oh man, like that's not
Link,
good.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'll just say my takeaway from my time with it at E3 was brief, but I felt like it was complicated. That was my major thing. I was like, well, this does this, and you can do this with your shield, and you can do this, and you can slide down, and then you can grab a bomb, and then do this. Oh, you hit, and I'm like, simplicity has always been the key with Zelda. Like I've played literally every Zelda game except for Skyward Sword. At some point, you have to have like a more simple approach, and I'll be interested to see if that translates. I'll be interested to see if that was just me. Or there's me being new to the game.
Yeah, that would be the hope, right?
I would hope so, but it seems like there's a lot to do, and so.
But I mean, that'll all be introduced slowly, you'd assume, right? I mean, granted, even though you're dropped in without a tutorial, you're not gonna have all your bombs, you're not gonna have all your like swords or bow and arrow stuff.
I mean, even now, having played through the same demo a couple times, I do feel like I do have a better grasp of how to do all those different systems. So it is less, crazy to come at. But
that was I was shocked when I played it. I was like, this is complicated, dude. Like,
well, the big
Zelda's
thing for you
so
too is that you couldn't invert.
That was a big thing.
And then you were saying you looked, but you couldn't find it?
There wasn't an invert option for the demo, but there was a menu that I couldn't get to. So I'm assuming that it's in there. But anyway, I mean, the game is fantastic. Like, just from the very little I've played, like, this seems like the Zelda game that I want to play, you know, and Skyward Sword, I liked. I don't hate it as much as everybody else. And Twilight Princess, I like a lot more than I think a lot of other people do. Wind Waker and all the other ones, obviously amazing. But I'm ready for this game. And I think that it's about time for it to come out. And all the cons aside, like those are all minor things. But I do think that I'm interested that no one else has been bringing them up because I don't think it's just me. The controls are pretty damn weird, especially having just beat Last Guardian. I'm like, oh, this feels like that, you know? So we'll see how that goes. Splatoon 2, me and Kev did a little bit of playing of it. I'm not a huge Splatoon guy, not that I don't like the game. It's just I just never really got into it, so I'm not good at it or anything. But they had a huge setup where you could play with a bunch of people at once. That was another game that had various control options to be able to do, but it was also another one that I picked up just to kind of play with the portable mode?
Handheld mode.
Handheld mode. Who the fuck calls them handhelds these days?
Nintendo.
Yeah. But Splatoon looks great. People seem to be having a lot of fun with it, so that's good. Snipperclips, my favorite game that I played at the Switch event. It's a little eShop game. It's a co-op physics-based puzzle game. Super fun. Cannot wait to play through it. We should do a whole Let's Play series or just a long Let's Play of us playing through. It's super awesome. There's a Let's Play up on Kind of Funny Games with me and Daniel Bloodworth from Easy Allies. We had a great time with it. It's a complicated like gameplay element that you have to wrap your head around, but once you do, you're like, oh, I get how this works, and you kind of go through it. But it's like so frustrating because like you need to not only figure out the puzzle in your head, but the other person needs to, and you need to communicate that, and that's where it gets really complicated because it's kind of like Photoshop where there's layers on top of each other, but whatever the top layer is can snip through the bottom layer, reshaping the other person.
Sure. And
you have to be able to fit into holes. Like there's like your two rectangles, and you need to figure out how to fit into a heart shape. So you need to rotate, snip, rotate all the way around, and like just keep going until you fit that heart shape.
Gotcha.
And it's like, all right, cool. That's the simple version. Then the next step is like a giant pencil will fall from the sky, and there's a pencil sharpener that's horizontal, and you need to catch the pencil and bring it over and get it into the sharpener. So to do that, you have to have some sex there and make one of the dudes look like a U to kind of like baseball mitt catch the pencil and then run over and balance it with the other guy until it falls over and bridge it into the pencil sharpener. And it's definitely one of those aha moment games, and I super loved it. I haven't had that much fun doing a co-op puzzle game since like Portal 2.
Oh, wow.
So highly recommend that. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 was it's with dry bones.
Yeah.
Yes. And battle mode, which is even more important. A proper battle mode. Fuck yes. It's been way too long since we've had that. And it looks great, plays great. There's a whole bunch of new characters too, Splatoon characters and all that shit. Splatoon stages. We don't know official numbers of courses and all that. It's rumored to have 64 total courses, which is insane. That's like 8 Grand Prix. Or 16 Grand Prix. So that's a lot of content.
Yeah.
It's all the DLC and all the stages and characters from the original Mario Kart 8 plus more. But yeah, it's Mario Kart, so duh.
Can't wait.
You either like it or you don't.
Can't
And if you don't, you're an idiot. We were forced to play it with the single Joy-Con.
Oh, how was that?
With motion
was that
controls.
perfect, huh?
And it was fucking horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the Let's Play, there's a moment where I'm like, I turned it like after the first map we did. I'm like, hey, can we turn off the motion controls? He's like, not for this demo. And I was just like, look at the camera. I'm just like, oh, Nintendo. And it's just like, why, man? Why are they pushing this? Even for the people that are here. They obviously don't want to fucking do that.
Yeah. Well, they want you to have your experience, though, and you have your hands-on impressions that it sucks, I guess.
Oh, my God. Well, that was that. Couldn't take away from Mario Kart, but they damn tried. Fast Remix. It's semi-ports of an eShop game on the Wii U called Fast Neo Racing. It's kind of like an F-Zero homage.
Yeah.
Super awesome game. I'm happy it's getting a second life. It deserves it. Super Bomberman R, another game that I really loved. The Nintendo Switch seems to be a kind of renaissance for nostalgic 90s games. coming back in like slightly modernized ways, and I'm all about that. Like between Super Bomberman R, Street Fighter, and Sonic, I'm like, all right, cool. This seems like a machine for me.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people were talking about Super Bomberman. They really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was one of the better experiences I had playing a game. It's Bomberman. It's nothing new. But that's fun. And I think it's been long enough that I haven't played a Bomberman. Like I think the last one I really played was on Game Boy Advance. So it's been a while. And I'm like, fuck, this game is fun, especially in a modern age of Let's Plays and, playing games as content.
Yeah.
I think that there's a definite new home for it. And playing online sounds super awesome. There's a story mode too that I got to play a little bit of, and it sounds like there's going to be a fair amount of content there. From the little I played, there was enough gimmicks and switch ups that I'm like, oh, cool. Like
Switch ups.
So are we replacing the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you got
okay.
it.
There you go.
By the time we switch. Real quick before we go, and this might be me being just stupid, which happens more often than not. Have they talked about, is there an ad hoc mode? Like if you and I are sitting on the plane with our Switches and we want to play, not Snipperclips, I guess, but like Mario Kart when it's out, is there ad hoc or do we need to be on a Wi-Fi
I'm not
network?
clear.
Okay.
I don't know about that.
I guess you could always play locally for these games too, where I could shut mine down. And
They
you
have
could
nothing
join.
to announce at this time.
Yeah, nothing.
Please be excited for E3.
Did you see that story that Jason Schreier put on
Kotaku?
Kotaku? It was the fucking funniest thing I've ever seen.
didn't see, what was it?
He asked them like 10 different questions. I think they answered 2 of them. And then like the rest of them were, we have nothing to announce at this time. I was like, do you have a trophy achievement system? We have nothing to announce at this time. Do you have blah, blah, blah? We have nothing to announce at this time. Like, when will you announce it? The console's out in 6 weeks. Will you announce it soon? Will you have something to say about your trophy system soon? Or anything else? Will you have anything to say at all?
Say something.
No, the console is 7 months, probably premature. So that's probably why they have nothing to say on it.
Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Mm-hmm.
Super fun game. I got to play it for a bit. It was the first Let's Play that we did. It's Puyo Puyo and Tetris at the same time, and they switch back and forth between each other. So as you're playing like a multiplayer match, and for those that don't know, Puyo Puyo, it's the same game as Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine or Kirby's Avalanche, or there's a whole bunch of other games that goes under. It's kind of similar to Tetris Attack or Pokemon Puzzle League, but you have to match 3 instead of 2. You play through that, and then after a set amount of times, like 20 seconds or whatever, it'll switch to Tetris. And you have to play Tetris, then after 20 seconds, it'll switch back to Puyo Puyo. But the kind of extra layer there is as it switches, the blobs or the blocks that were falling are still falling. So the last ones, you need to think ahead and look at the timer and be like, oh shit, I need to get this where it needs to go so it drops in the right place. So when it switches over, it keeps up the combo and all that. And it was a lot of fun. I could definitely see you guys getting into it, Tetris.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming. This is a game people are really excited about. This game came out in 2014 in Japan, and we've all seen things on it, but I was a little disappointed in the sense that it's coming to PS4 and Xbox One as well, and this announcement would have had more resonance if the trophies didn't leak for the game like the week before the Switch came out, because then I was expecting that it was gonna, we had already known it was coming in some respects, so I think this would have been a bigger hit for a lot of people, because this is a great game for a handheld. Mm-hmm. So I was a little saddened by that, because I think it took a little bit of wind out of their sails with that particular announcement.
I mean, for me, I didn't know shit about it, and even when they announced it, like during the presentation, like just the name came up, I was like, I don't know what the fuck. But playing it, I was like, oh shit, this is good.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
That's the thing. I remember when it came out for the trophies leaked, and we were talking about it there, and I was like, oh man, I'm excited for it based on what I know, and then having it there is great. But I'm like, is it going to be? When is it coming to PlayStation 4, and what's the trade off, and where are we getting them?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me that I don't want to go understated is that I had fun playing all the games that I played at the event. None of them blew my mind except Zelda, but I'm happy with what we're getting so far, and like, I don't know. There's no Mario. I wanted Mario. I'm very upset I didn't get to play Mario there, but the games I did play all were small titles that I'm like, cool. Now, I think the majority of the ones that I'm really standing by are eShop titles, so it's like, Speaking of smaller titles, Sonic Mania. Love that game.
You love that Sonic Mania.
Since the first time I played it. I even saw it. I've got to play the same demo I played a million times on Switch. It was another one where they forced me to play with a goddamn Joy-Con. Me and Kev played 2-player co-op, which is a thing in this. You can play as Sonic and Tails at the same time.
Nice.
If Sonic goes too fast, Tails just doesn't get to play anymore and gets warped back. And it's dumb. It's super tacked on, and that mode shouldn't exist because it doesn't work. And it was like there was the first demo I got to play at the event, and because there was no line for it, so I just ran straight to it. And I asked the lady, I'm like, oh, can I just take the controllers and put it in the thing? And she was like, oh, yeah, sure. So I got to play one level like that.
And then Reggie exploded through the wall.
Someone came over and like, excuse me, he can't play that way. I was like, God damn it. So then we had to
Why
play
are they
with
so
the
weird?
Joy-Con.
Why does it matter how people are playing it?
They're always like that, man. It's fucking bullshit.
They know if
so
they let you, you'll
annoying.
play it like a normal
Preview
video
events
game.
are so annoying. Like I wish they would just like. We even had it with when we played a bunch of people PS4 games at E3 last year when I was playing Horizon, and the guy, really nice guy, was sitting with me or whatever, and eventually I was like, I'm just gonna play now. Like I don't play games people chattering in my ear and telling me what to do. I'm gonna play
If
the
you
way
bring up your
I.
menu wheel now, you can use this actually, because what's interesting about taking these guys down is you can use your weapon user right now, but you can also tether this. Shut the fuck up!
The person at home's not gonna have this, and I don't need it either. Like that's the whole thing. It's like just let me play. Like it's a self-conscious experience, and it's also like it's annoying. It was one of the reasons why I was super turned off about playing, not only because I couldn't invert Zelda at E3, but just in the sense that of like having someone just in your face the entire time. I was like, dude, just walk away. I'll let you know if I need you to explain anything for me, but otherwise it detracts from the experience. And so it's disappointing that they did that to you, because it's like, if you want to play like that, you should be able to play like that.
The whole point of the system.
Who's getting hurt by that?
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, and that's something interesting too. Is again, the best experience I had playing was Snipperclips, just because that was definitely like the sleeper hit of the event, where everybody that played it loved it, and there was nobody at that demo station telling people what to do.
Nice.
There was just controllers that you go and pick up and play, and it's just like, maybe there's a note there. But yeah, so after that we played Ultra Street Fighter 2. It's crazy. There's a new Street Fighter 2 coming out. Like, good Lord, the final challengers. It's a little upsetting that the two new characters are evil Ryu and violent Ken.
Yeah, just palette swaps. Do they have new skills?
Yeah, they do. There's different abilities and stuff. I don't know what they are because I'm not that deep into that shit, but I asked them and they said there was differences.
It would have been cool if they took some of the more modern characters from the 32-bit or Beyond era and pixelate them. If you threw in like, I don't know, like Birdie and whatever, Cody or something like that would have been cool.
Yeah, it's Street Fighter 2, which is super awesome. There's two modes. There's retro and HD. HD makes it look like the HD remix that came out on PS3 and Xbox 360 last gen, which I'm pretty sure got taken off the stores.
That sounds right,
at
but
some
I don't know
point.
for sure. Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. But I love those games when they came out. And it also has retro mode where you can play how it used to look. And there's a bunch of single player stuff they added to. Like there's where it's Ryu and Ken versus Bison. So it's like story element stuff, kind of like the rival mode in Street Fighter 4. So that's cool. I got to play against this dude, and he was talking a lot of shit, and I beat him.
Nice.
And I'm real happy about that because I'm not good at these games, but it felt good.
Dime out the dude. Who's the
good.
dude? Who is this motherfucker?
I have no idea who this dude is. Gave me attitude though.
Dan Reichert?
Appreciate that shit. No, it's a random Nintendo guy.
It was Dan Reichert.
It was not Dan Reichert. Dan Reichert
Rich
was
George.
at the event though. Rich George
Reggie.
was also at the event. Reggie was also at the event.
Bill Trennan.
At the event, but I didn't see him.
So was this guy talking shit though? Bill in a mustache.
Maybe it could have been. Definitely could have been. Hardware. It's an important thing to talk about.
Yeah, you glossed over it when we did the morning show, but give me the rundown of the controllers again. The controller configs.
You got the Joy-Cons. Really tiny.
Yeah.
Just as tiny as they look. That's not to say they're not comfortable. They're good. They're solid controllers, especially when in the Joy-Con grip.
Now you were saying the Joy-Con grip is as good as the Pro controller.
Joy-Con grip, Pro controller, equal.
Okay.
Totally. When in a grip, it's a legit controller. It doesn't feel like super shitty. It's not like a weird third-party knockoff. It's like, oh, this is a solid controller.
Okay.
It's what I did the Zelda demo on, and I'm like, I could play a whole Zelda game this way and be totally cool with it. I prefer the Pro controller because it has bigger buttons.
Gotcha.
I've always been somebody that likes big buttons. I always talk shit about the Vita and 3DS because they have such little baby buttons. The Joy-Con controllers are baby buttons. Like
Gotcha.
they're, I think, the exact same size as 3DS, which to me is a problem. I don't like that shit. The D-pad on the Joy-Con feels wrong because it's not the Nintendo D-pad. It's because you're used to the Nintendo D-pad being
Sure.
the cross, right?
Yeah.
This is 4 separate buttons. And the reason they did that is because they want the two controllers to be completely symmetrical to each other so people can play with left or right, like alone. And I think that's kind of my biggest problem with a lot of the decisions Nintendo made from a hardware perspective is they made so many concessions and so many decisions based off things that I don't think consumers care about or want. And I think that like their big push with all the motion control stuff is an example of that. And I don't think that the motion control stuff is bad. And I think that games like ARMS are examples of it being good. But you don't need to focus on that, especially to the detriment of the people that are actually playing these games. And I think the focus on playing with just a Joy-Con controller is another example of no one's actually going to do that. And if they are, they shouldn't be the people that you're marketing towards, because that is family stuff where it's like the two dumb kids that don't know what they're doing that just want to play.
Yeah.
In that case, they're totally fine. They don't need them to be symmetrical controllers. They'll figure it out. They figured it out for years with the Wii, when the Wii made no damn sense when you turn it on its side and it's like all of a sudden the buttons are in weird ass places, like with the 1 and the 2 and all that shit.
Sure.
But I do think that there's some major problems there. But overall, I feel good. And what I'm extremely happy about is when they're separated and you just have them in your two hands, kind of like a nunchuck and a Wiimote, that's when it's at its best. I can totally see myself playing games that way.
Weird.
Mario Galaxy is what really kind of pushed me over the edge of not hating the Wiimote nunchuck situation, where I was like, I actually like this, minus the waggle. Just having your hands separated feels pretty natural to play a game, especially when you're used to doing this. It's like, it's shocking that it's as fun as it is. And I don't know if you agree with me on that, but
Yeah, I had no problem with that setup. Galaxy control like a dream.
yeah, exactly. And so I like it. I think that this is a even better step forward, because whereas on the Wii, you just had the analog stick and the nunchuck and Wiimote were two very different devices, having it be essentially two halves of a controller, I'm like, all right, cool. Being able to play any game this way is going to be awesome.
You can wrap your head around it real quick.
Yeah. And whether it's tabletop mode or on the TV, like it makes sense, and I'm looking forward to it. Just being able to sit, like, I mean, nowadays wireless controllers are standard, so it's not like that crazy of a thing. But being able to sit wrapped in a blanket with your hands however the fuck you want, like just be comfortable. That's how
how you play sometimes. You're sitting here. Okay.
I'm excited about that. But overall, I wish that the Nintendo Switch, from a hardware perspective, from handheld mode, is everything I could ever want it to be, except for this, and this. So it's not.
Yeah.
You know, when you go back to years ago, even talking about on Gamescast, talking about what we want from the Vita 2, the Switch is essentially all of those things. You know, it's like, I just want a big screen that I can just play games on, use a real controller for, or whatever. It's like all that I want, except with tiny ass baby buttons and all these weird ass things. So I'm upset about that, but it doesn't matter, because there is so many different control options. The Joy-Cons, to wrap that shit up, the motion is the most precise motion I've ever seen in games. It felt better than PlayStation Move. It felt better than Wii Motion Plus. And I already thought they were at a point with even with PlayStation Move that I'm like, this is pretty damn good. You know, I can't imagine needing or wanting better. But ARMS was the best motion control experience I've ever had. So there's that. There's HD Rumble.
There's no sensor bar or camera. Is it all just done by the stuff inside the controllers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there was no sensor bar, so
just making sure. I didn't know if there was something on handheld mode or the dock that was doing something.
No.
Just double checking.
The HD Rumble stuff, as I said on the morning show, so far feels more different than better. It's definitely different. The vibration is noticeable in a way that I haven't felt in video games since it started back in like Star Fox 64.
Sure.
Like, but I don't know that that's a good thing. Like, I don't want to notice the vibration in my controller. But if gameplay, you know, is based on that, then that could be cool.
That's the whole thing, right? I remember Rumble was distracting when it first got introduced, right? When you'd feel things whirling around, like what
it's
the hell
constantly
is this?
doing shit. So I don't know. And I also didn't play 1-2 Switch, which is the game showing that stuff off the most. So there is that. I've been corrected many times based on the morning show that the Pro Controller also includes HD Rumble, and maybe the games that I was playing on that controller versus others, I didn't feel it as much, but I didn't feel it as much. So it's either more intense in the Joy-Con, or Rumble just wasn't featured as prominently in the games I played on that controller. The Pro Controller, fantastic. It's a real controller with, you know, a real setup of buttons and sticks that makes sense. I do think that in the pantheon of current gen console controllers, it's dead last. I think that both the DualShock and Xbox One controllers are superior. Not necessarily vastly superior. I think it's closer than it could be, but I wish that they tried a little harder to nail this. The big ass buttons are super choice. The D-pad is the D-pad that I love. So it answers a lot of the issues that I had with the Joy-Cons. Don't love the triggers, but that's also because I'm used to DualShock 4 triggers, and I do prefer those over the Xbox One. This is more similar to Xbox One. Obviously, there's many millions of people out there that prefer the Xbox One controller over PS4. So it's all a matter of taste at that point. But I think that overall, very solid controller. Is it worth $80? No, it's not.
But it's got that HD rumble.
Fine. Yeah, it does. So we'll see where that goes. But I don't think that makes it worth it. But it is cool that it has all the gyro stuff and the IR stuff that the Joy-Cons do, or even the gamepad. So you could play Splatoon and move just like you can with the gamepad, and it feels just as right. So that's good. The user interface, very, very, very limited for how we got to see it, but it's very sleek and clean compared to the Wii U. No focus of Mii's, none of that stuff. In reports in the last couple of days, we saw that Mii's will be on the Switch, but they're deep in the option system to go make one. It's not like a prominent feature. Miiverse is dead. But the whole focus of the UI is games. It's like just 4 big blocks that are just the different games you can play, and then there's just like 5 settings underneath it that are like, settings and, internet and eShop and whatever. I'm like, all right, cool. That's good that they're taking a more adult design interface. So excited about that. And the thing that I'm super impressed by is the speed at which it docks and undocks, which sounds like a stupid thing, but it blew my mind at how responsive and snappy the Switch was. And it does lead to the name Switch. And I think that a lot of why they called it that is because of how ridiculously crazy it is switching from TV to portable mode is. When we saw in the Jimmy Fallon thing, everyone thought that was like a fake ass video playing and there's no way it'll switch that fast. It really is. Like me and Kevin were like mind blown every time we saw someone take it out and how quickly it would turn on and switch from the modes. It is instant. Like it's as instant as unplugging and plugging in an HDMI cable. So it's like there's like that 0.1 second of lag, and all of a sudden it's on, and I'm like, man,
that's awesome.
Good for you guys. And detaching and reattaching the controllers, super easy. It's never like you never have to fumble and figure it out. And overall, this is the most adult hardware Nintendo has ever made. All of it, from Joy-Con, the handheld mode thing, the Pro controllers, all of it feels like adult products and not kids' toys, which is awesome because it still has the kid games, which is why I love them. So,
well, yeah, that was the big thing takeaway, right? Of that, it looks sexy, right? For all these problems that we have with launch lineups or whatever the hell it's going to be, like what it looked like is it looks great. So I'm glad you played it and feel that way as well.
Yeah.
How thick is it? How thick is a Joy-Con?
So thin.
Yeah.
So ridiculously thin. Like that's the craziest thing is how sleek the entire device is, where it is just like a big Vita, which is a great thing. You know, I'm a little sad about how much bezel there is on the screen itself, and I get it. It has to be there so that it can be docked in tabletop mode and for all the different functionality that it has. So yeah, it's a little sad to see so much of the screen real estate be taken up by like the black bars around it, especially when you play something like Zelda. And I'm like, man, I could really appreciate that extra inch of real estate. But I'm sure I'll get over it. And again, it's just disheartening because like I was on a flight back from New York and I had my iPad Pro up, and I'm like, why can't this just be the Switch? You know? Yeah. Like, why can't I just attach a controller to this and download an app and play Nintendo games? Because that's all I freaking want to do. Yeah. But whatever. Dreams are dreams.
Your dreams 2019.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the first year of the Nintendo Switch, or what we know of it so far. Right. So I got to play all those games. They were great. They were cool. Whatever. Zelda's the obvious dominant launch title. But there are other launch titles. Okay. I was going to say many, but that would be a lie. As of today, January 20th, we know of these launch titles. 1-2 Switch, which is not a pack-in. The Binding of Isaac, Afterbirth Plus. Just Dance, 2017. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Skylanders Imaginators, and Super Bomberman R. What are your thoughts on this launch lineup? Launch day lineup.
Seems shallow. You know what I mean? Zelda's going to be awesome. Bomberman sounds awesome from everything you're saying. But right there, that's what I plan on picking up and playing on day one. Snipperclips isn't even a launch game?
No.
Great.
It's March.
Okay.
So that's the thing. Moving on a little bit here. Games confirmed for March that don't have an actual date tied to them are Snipperclips, Fast Remix, I Am Setsuna, and Has Been Heroes.
Gotcha.
I feel like Snipperclips should have made the launch date. I think it would have been.
I feel like from what you're saying, that would sound like, of course it should have. Yes, like you have this eShop game, you have this thing that people think is cool, but you want to get it out there on launch day. So everybody who's like, I want to play something, and I'm hearing good things about this, and it's only $14 or whatever the hell it's going to be as an eShop game. Jump on that one and actually move units that way and get people super excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a great launch lineup in terms of that, but I guess I think it was Ryan McCaffrey going back and forth with people on Twitter about this, of like, he's super excited about it and he's fine with the launch lineup as it is because he has Zelda, and why would he want something to distract him from Zelda and stuff like that? And it's not a bad argument, but it's also, and then because then I do think back to like my PlayStation 2 launch lineup, right, where I bought a whole bunch of stuff, but I really just played Madden over and over again. Smuggler's Run, and even Smuggler's Run, I'm trying to convince myself was great.
Yeah.
Their launch lineups are hard to nail. I feel like this, and I assume what Nintendo's doing here is something similar to what Adam Boyce talked about 2 years ago, right? With the two PSXs ago, where he wants to have 2 or 3 announcements for everybody, right? I have 2 games on there that I'll buy on day one. Sure, okay, great. And that you need to try to apply that to everybody and give them something, but you don't want to overwhelm it and then have games get drowned out. I wouldn't buy Bomberman if there were 3 other games in there that I thought were awesome. Not to mention the fact that it's going to be just like my Wii, right? Where I get it and I'm like, okay, cool. Bomberman or whatever, I'll screw around with that, and then I'm jumping right into Zelda and playing Zelda until probably until I beat it, number one, but until Snipperclips or something else comes along like that. We're talking about the first year of the Switch here. The first year of the Switch sounds like it's going to be a stumble out of the gates, and it's going to be an uphill battle based on popular opinion and everything else that's happened with it, right? Like, I went back and forth. I got my pre-order on the first night there off of Amazon, and it was one of those like, I'm getting it and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it, and what I have to figure out why I'd want to keep this and what it means to me. And for me, a big thing is I want to play Zelda. I hate my Wii U. And a week later we go to Boston. So it's like, all right, cool. I have 12 hours on a plane. You know, I mean, I want to be playing Zelda on that. I want to be able to go off into the wilds and do side quests and do all these different things. And even if we got it early, let's say through Nintendo or something like that, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of side stuff for me to go do. Yeah, to go off and do something different on it. And so I was like, all right, there's that. And then in April, there's Mario Kart. And then in the holiday, there's Mario. And that's enough for me right there, let alone the little things that'll come along and do these different things. But I wish it was a no-brainer. It's always shitty to have, hey, there's this new console coming out, and do we want it? Is it what it is? I mean, I think as Colin said a few times on this show, like it seems like a rushed thing. Why is it coming out right now? What is the reasoning behind putting it out right now?
Zelda.
But I mean, even
that is the reason.
And we've said that, I know. But I mean, is that for a fiscal year? Is it because we just want to get it off the pot with the Wii U version?
I really think Zelda is the reason they're putting it out. I don't think they can hold Zelda anymore, and I think that they realize that if they put Zelda out on Wii U, and the Switch comes out in the fall when it probably should have, that when the games were ready and that they had something to say. I mean, Zelda or Switch launching with Mario would have been way more compelling than Switch launching with Zelda for the mass market. And Zelda games, as we talked about on the morning show last week, people have a mixed perception of how much these games sell. And there's a few examples of them selling very well. Ocarina of Time sold very well. The original Zelda sold very well. But then you have examples of Zelda games selling, like, everyone's talking about Link Between Worlds, which sold fewer than 3 million copies. It's like, but if you would just listen to the Nintendo fans or listen to Twitter or something like that, you think that game sold 25 million copies, but it didn't, And so that's my major concern with Switch is that, I mean, I don't want to belabor what I said on Colin Was Right already. You guys can watch that episode. What bums me out about Switch is that the hardware looks great, and I think it's sexy, and I think it's a great idea. It's just everything else. Like they just fucked up. What do I think of this launch lineup? I think this launch lineup is mediocre at best, and I think that anyone who says anything other than that it's mediocre is lying to themselves, because you have a great game in Zelda, but that's like saying the N64's 2 games at launch were great because you had Mario, but it was 2 games. Like you have to have a variety for people. Some people are gonna play Zelda, they're gonna be done with it in 4 or 5 days. Then what? That's like, and then they're gonna play 1-2 Switch. They can play I Am Setsuna. Like and I'm a huge fan of I Am Setsuna. That's the major thing I'm concerned about. This thing is not ready. I think that's like my major takeaway. They don't even know the answers to half the questions that are being asked for it. Netflix isn't even on it, which is weird. You can only take screenshots with it. You can't, like, there's no trophy system. You have to use online. A lot of it's attached to a phone app. Yeah. Like, I'm like, what? Like the common theme I've gotten from people from the Switch is that some people are excited about it. Some people are in the middle. Some people are not excited about it. But a common theme is that, if anything, that conference made people less excited. And that's bad. Like, if I would have been like, yeah, day one. Like, still, if I didn't see that conference. You know?
Yeah, and that's a really big problem because, I mean, and again, not to belabor the points because we all know what we thought about the conference, but there was so much in that conference that was like huge. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that's speaking to Nintendo fans, like the hardest of hardcore Nintendo fans. Hardcore in a way, I'm not even hardcore. And it's like, that gets, muddled out by weird presentation and a weird focus of why we're supposed to like this console. But yeah, for me, as somebody that you often talk about how, Nintendo fans aren't buying Nintendo consoles for Nintendo games, as a generality, when you're looking at the numbers, right? I am somebody that buys Nintendo consoles for Nintendo games. I love my Wii U to this day because it provided me with many great games, many great experiences that I hold up there as some of the best of all time. And I'm buying the Switch, and I'm confident that I'm going to fucking love it based on how much I've played of it and also just what games I know are coming, let alone the ones I don't know are coming. And again, do I sound like a burned lover? Yeah, exactly. But those moments, those awesome moments of love that I get, I'm like, all right, cool. That's enough for me. Especially because it's cheap enough overall as an investment where I'm like $300, like, all right, cool. $300, like with the Wii U, I have not regretted the Wii U a single moment because of at least five games that I love with it, let alone the fact that there was 15 that I loved with it.
But when I talk about perception, it's not necessarily talking from my lens, because as an old Nintendo fan, like, I like to play my Nintendo games on Nintendo consoles too. Like, it's what I use my N64 for. It's what I use my GameCube for. Although GameCube had a good third-party support, and obviously Wii really died because Nintendo stopped supporting it, not because third parties stopped supporting it, because people do want their Nintendo games, and I acknowledge that, and that's why I would want it. So I'm not talking about, from my perspective, like, I wish that they had Call of Duty on this thing so I can play Call of Duty on it, because I wouldn't play Call of Duty on it anyway. What I'm talking about more is the mass market. The mass market doesn't give a flying fuck about Xenoblade Chronicles, for this thing to go out there and win some people over, it needs to have more, and that's my whole thing about. If it's a console for me and you, that's great, but it shouldn't be a console just for me and you, because it's going to fail. And that's the thing I'm trying to, that's why, like, I'm like, people are like, well, the PS4 and the Xbox One launch lineups were bad too. And I'm like, no, they really weren't. I don't know why everyone keeps saying that. They really weren't bad. They were actually,
didn't have any standout that was better than the rest. It was a bunch of 8s.
Yeah, but that's great though. When you're launching, and because people are like, well, launch with some ports too. I'm like, I guess, but it came with a Call of Duty. Like, Call of Duty was on it at launch. Battlefield was on it at launch. Assassin's Creed was on it at launch.
Madden.
Like, what'd you say?
Madden
was on it at launch. NBA 2K was on it at launch. Like, it was NAC was on it at launch. Killzone was on
Online.
But the point is that they had not only volume, because I don't think volume necessarily matters. If volume mattered, then the 3DS launch would have been great, and the 3DS launch was fucking awful. And people are asking, well, what's a worse launch launch lineup than Switch? And I'm like, 3DS. Is the fucking worst launch lineup I've ever seen for a Nintendo product. But so it's not only about volume, but about choice, and it's about, hey, dude on the couch that might not care about Mario, this machine also is for you. It's like Killzone wasn't the reason that people bought a PS4. Killzone was just an additive thing. People wanted PS4 because of the variety of games and the promise of games in the future. And when I look at this, I'm with Greg where I'm like, yeah, Zelda looks great. I have a Switch pre-order that I was actually writing an email to you when I saw your Facebook post about how you got it and went to bed. And I'm like, I actually got that pre-order thinking you would want it because I thought you were asleep. So I appreciate that. So now I'm like, what the fuck do I do? It's the first time we're like, I don't really know if I want this. We have a Wii U. I'll just play it on Wii U.
But heed the words of Betty Ann Moriarty.
My mom tweeted at me and be like, keep it. You never know what's gonna happen. And I'm like, you're right. But when I look at it, I'm like, Zelda and then Mario. Okay. So I just, I want people to enjoy the console. I think it's going to be a great handheld, and I hope it sells well. As I said, selling twice as well as the Wii U is going to be a massive success. People are saying like 50 million units. I'm like, yeah. No way. But 25 million units is doable. They just have to nail this thing, and they have a perception problem. You can't sell a product to Nintendo fans. That's what the Wii U was. You can't do it. Like it's not going to work. And that group's even smaller now, because now you have a bunch of scorned lovers there, right? Like every generation seems like they shave off people that are going to fucking eat shit. And so that's why I'm afraid for them, because Like I love the idea of the Switch. It's so fucking cool. You know, I don't even need to put my hands on it or play it to know, like, this is great. It's not a great idea. But guys, you have to have more than Zelda and Mario. And I know that people are like, well, they have Splatoon, and they have, guys, Splatoon didn't move Wii U's, and it's not going to move Switches. Xenoblade didn't move Wii U's, it's not going to move Switches. Donkey Kong didn't move Wii U's, not going to move Switches. You have to think differently. Zelda will move Switches, and Mario will move Switches. But you have to have stuff in between, and Nintendo doesn't have the wherewithal and the resources. None of the first parties do to just fill the back catalog with just their games. It's just not possible, and that's the thing that I'm concerned about, and why I feel like they're just sending this thing out not to die. It's not going to die. It'll be around for years, but to send it out to just be, and it shouldn't just be.
I mean, talking about the first year, I feel like best case scenario, you can look at it like this: the launch here is going out to the beta testers. If you're buying it like you and I are on day one, or Betty Ann's telling Colin to, we're all beta testers and going through, and we're going to stumble through the pain as they figure out this online system that's free until they want to start charging for it and all these different things. But you get to December, and hopefully either based on a few E3 announcements, also Mario doesn't slip and actually comes out in the holiday. Suddenly, then I feel like you have a chance to remarket this thing and have a renaissance like they did with 3DS when they put 3DS up against Vita to crush Vita. And when they were like, all right, cool, we understand that we've been slacking. Here's why you get this. And you run a trailer that is Zelda, Kart, and the new Mario and Mario Odyssey, and hopefully 2 or 3 other things that are we didn't expect that are there. Some, whatever, Animal Crossing or third-party awesome exclusives. Suddenly, people are going to be like, fuck yeah, I want that for Christmas. It finally matters, and they'll get it and go. Yeah. I don't think this is like... This isn't a death blow out of the gate. It's just a stumble that I think they can come back from. And when there's I think you're going to get to... You're going to get to the point that so many people argue about the Wii U is faster than you did with the Wii U, where you're going to get to, no, the library is great, and guess what? The hardware is fucking awesome, which is you could never say about the Wii U.
Never. And even me, I could never say that. I mean, the point you're making is interesting. What I do think is a death blow is the industry perception of this thing and the way that people are talking about Nintendo as a whole. And when you talk about the same old Nintendo, I think really the part I agree with most of that is how... there's nobody that wants this thing to succeed more than me, and I can't hold on to they'll nail it at E3. I don't believe that they will anymore. Whereas 3 weeks ago, I believed more than anything. I was like, I can't fucking wait for this presentation, and then E3 is just going to be even better. And it's like now it's like, no. I do believe that Sony's going to have a killer E3 because they've proven they've had this track record recently of just nailing it. And then the PS4 conference, which like in the grand scheme of things doesn't even matter because when you look at it, E3 and PSX is what matters. Nintendo presentation mattered more than anything because this is them putting their best foot forward of here's the new Nintendo and here's what we are. And I will still give it to them that I want to see a more American-based conference. So E3, I'm excited for it. No matter what, I'd be excited for it. But I'm not looking forward to it as this thing that's going to answer all the questions in the way that I expected it to and needed it to for this to not just be, oh, Nintendo, But it's like, having said that, I do think that there is a lot going for it. And you're talking about the beta tester thing. When 3DS came out, it had an abysmal launch lineup. And it came out in March, if I remember correctly. And it wasn't until probably January-ish the next year that it was like, oh shit, there's actually some games coming out for this thing. And then from then on, it was awesome. And they did a really good job of keeping up with the 3DS
and they cut the price, which is why I think that I was so happy that Switch is going out at 300 because I think that they need to give themselves room to maneuver.
Wiggle room, which, that sucks for the people buying it now, but also like whatever.
They did that to 3DS owners too, and they called them ambassadors. I really do feel in my heart that like a strong, vibrant hardware manufacturing Nintendo is essential. And when I saw out of them at that conference, what I'm seeing it now is I'm like, man, like I hope I'm wrong because I want the Switch to succeed because I want Nintendo to do well. I think they need to show everyone that they're capable of doing more. But I wouldn't be surprised to see for this to be it too. Not for the company, but for their hardware initiative in the next few years, where it's just like if people don't care about this thing, it is over for them as far as a hardware manufacturer. So they need to make people to care about this. They're not going to do it again. They're not going to be like, you didn't care about Wii U. You guys bought the Wii, but then you put it in your closet in 2008, and you have your 3DS for frankly third-party games. And now you have, this particular device that you don't care about again. How about we do another one? Like that's not going to happen. So like this is their last stand, in terms of like the Nintendo I think we all want. Because a lot of people are like, can't wait to play Zelda on PS4 in 2019 or whatever. And I'm like, you don't really want that. Like we talk about that like it's a great idea and that would be nice for us as PS4 and Xbox One owners, but you don't really want that, because you want Nintendo to remain independent and a little different. And people are like, well, you don't want them to replicate what the others are doing. I'm like, no, you don't. You just want them to replicate the ideas that are actually good. And there are great ideas being done on those other consoles that matter. It's like saying, like iPhone, you can text on iPhone. Android devices don't text. Like, that's how essential some of the things are that are missing on this device. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You need to be able to you could voice chat on PSP. You know, like you could voice chat on Vita and 3DS and DSi. You know, like you can. I had, like I said in the Colin Was Right video, I was voice chatting on Xbox in 2003. You know, like there's no excuses for some of these things. No achievement structure was, as I said, the most emblematic thing. They don't give a flying fuck what's going on around them and are totally tone deaf. Man, that would have gotten so many people in the door. If they were like, hey, we have a coin system or a medal system or an achievement system, whatever they want to call it, a flag system, whatever, and you earn things for in game, and maybe we'll make it even more useful than just these EPEEN prizes that everyone likes to float around. Maybe you can buy things with them or something like that. Or it's just like, I saw all that stuff and I'm like, man, you guys, a lot of the decisions they made in my mind are indefensible and are going to hurt the system. Every one of them, you know, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. No achievements, punch in the face. You know, no voice chat, punch in the face. Have to matchmake with an app, punch in the face. Zelda, maybe a little massage in between rounds on the you can get back in there, getting back in the ring, and then you keep getting punched, and it's like, it's just disappointing. And what was surprising to me, because I'm known being so pessimistic about things and a little more harsh than other people are. What I was super surprised about, and you weren't here, but when I was just reading over that night and the next few days, everyone was like this. It was rare for me to see anyone that was super duper anything positive to say about it. You know, if Zelda wasn't on this thing, I mean, that's the thing I was trying to tell people. Like, I'm like, take Zelda and remove it. Now what? You know, how good does it look now?
But it is there, though. I mean, that's to me, and again, I'm going to come off as a super fanboy with this, and I don't even care because I really stand by this. Look at this thing for what it means to you. Do you want it or not? And I think that when it comes down to it, I could give a fuck less about voice chat. Trophies, they'd be really great, and I'd like if they had that type of stuff, but it's not a make or break for me. Like when I start going down the list of like, why am I going to like this? What am I upset about? I think that people get so lost in the weeds of, oh my God, the controllers are this much money. I'm not going to buy the controller then. Like, just stop.
Right.
You know?
I agree with what you're saying. And from my own viewpoint, it's like, yeah, I think my mom's actually right, where it's like, mom was right, where it's like,
Colin's mom was right.
It's like, yeah, you're going to play Zelda, you're going to enjoy Mario and New Donk City, whatever the fuck that is, that disturbing ass looking Mario game that they showed. But I look at it more as like a pie chart. Again, speaking for others and speaking more from a bird's eye view. If you look at the pie charts, like there's a little sliver of people there care about voice chat. They're out. A little sliver of people there that care about trophies and achievements. They're out. A little sliver of people there that would like to play third-party games on Nintendo consoles. They're out. A little and then you're just left with the same fucking piece of the pie. But that piece of the pie is smaller than it was 5 years ago. Smaller than it was 3 years ago.
I feel like they need to double down on that piece of pie and give that piece of pie more reasons for more people to enjoy it. And I think that is the big issue, is that when you look at it and you're just like, I don't want to play Call of Duty on this thing. I don't. It's better. It's always going to be better on the other systems. Nintendo lost that fight generations ago, you know? And I want to see a place where I'm playing, like this year is a horrible example of what I thought the Switch was going to be. I thought they were going to come out and that this presentation was going to be, here are all the ports that we're doing. Here's dates for all of them, which leads you to believe that next year on is going to be all the new games, and there's going to be this calendar of every 3 months there'll be a big game to look forward to. And we didn't see that, which worries me, because now I'm like, all right, I guess we're going to hear about Pokemon Stars at E3. And it's like, that's upsetting. Now, the one good thing about that is it could be announced at E3 coming this fall. You know, I still think that they have the chance to get all the ports out of the way, quote unquote, by the end of the year, so that at the end of the year, come holidays, there is a lot of enticing reasons for people to buy this thing, because there is so many people that didn't buy the Wii U. And it's like, all right, I didn't buy one at launch because it looked like shit and it doesn't have launch games I want, and it only has, 5 games or whatever. But then come the holidays, it's like, oh, well, now it has Zelda, and I never really got into Mario Kart 8, and I'll give Splatoon a try because people seem to like it and I don't understand it, but whatever, it's there. And Pokemon, create an HD Pokemon on a console, I should try that out. And I think that by then, hopefully, there's a lot more. But again, I can't stand by that because they fucked up so bad at this presentation. But I do think it's good that they talked about things like Xenoblade Chronicles, that they are seemingly just putting all in on Fire Emblem in a way that I would have never expected them to.
Well, I think the Fire Emblem sold better than they expected over the last two Fates and Awakening or whatever. I agree with what you're saying, but I would say that what you're saying is like, yeah, I want to get Mario. I'm interested in all these things, but the Venn diagram between all these games is just a fucking circle. And that's why you need to have...
I don't think it is, though, because...
But if that wasn't true, then we would have sold.
There's a bunch of various circles, and I think that it's a matter of getting those people to push over a little. Why didn't I play Splatoon more? I should, but I didn't, because it's a slightly different circle than the circle I'm in. And it's like, if they were to tell me that I get... I'm just hypothetically saying this. I get Mario in January. I get Zelda in February. I get Metroid in March. Then I get Splatoon in April. Then I get Smash Bros. In June. All of a sudden, I'd be like, I guess I should play Splatoon. You know, just because I trust them for all these other things that I love. So I'm going to go a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm going to try out Xenoblade Chronicles in a way that I wouldn't before. And I think that that's how they get that circle to be bigger and stronger and to buy every single thing that they do. Instead of now it being so long and far apart that it's like you feel burned even in the console that you're in. So I'm like, I don't trust you for Splatoon. I don't even really want to play it. Even when you hear good things about it, I don't jump into it.
To me, I think this thing is good for an automatic 10 million units. And then everything else from there is going to be added. I'm not saying it's going to stop at 10 million units, but everything else from there is going to depend on things outside of their ecosystem. Because I think Wii U, when you really look at it, with the exception of a 3D Mario game, had almost everything that like a Nintendo fan would really want, like a modern day Nintendo fan would really want. It had a lot of games. Like, and I think that was one of the major misconceptions, even from second party, was that like it was supported. It hasn't been supported more recently, and there were huge gaps. But that's my major concern is like, you want to, like, I look at it from the other way, like, get the Assassin's Creed bro in the door so he knows Splatoon's good, because otherwise he's not going to know. And he's not going to care, because one of the major things that I think is being overlooked too, and although some people have mentioned it, but it's not a major talking about it, and I don't know how you agree about it, is that Switch happens to be coming out at a very bad time. When you look at, and Zelda is obviously going to negate much of that for a lot of people, but a lot of games are coming out in March and April. Like, a lot of great, important games around that time, whether it's Horizon or Mass Effect or whatever it might be, that are going to distract from it too. And then what does it look like you were saying, a year, 18 months from now? That's why I was so disappointed. I wish they really had a roadmap where they're like where they really, I typically don't agree that you need to announce games way ahead of time, as people know, but with Nintendo they do, because they need to show something. And it would have been awesome to say, like, June's here, August is this, September's this, November's this, next February's this, April's this, June's this, like, and we're hitting all of these dates, and there's your reason to get in. And what I said to people was like, the third party sport's not happening. It's just not going to come. Yeah. Like, and so they better hope for a better and more vibrant Nintendo this time than they got with Wii U, and I don't think you should hope for that, because I don't think it's possible. Like, I think Zelda's gonna be great. I think Mario's gonna be great. Again, super fucking disturbing to see Mario in a world looking like that.
Sonic 2006.
Really, really can't forget and ever erase that from my mind. Him standing next to a human. Yeah.
Probably gonna fuck that human.
I hope so.
Yeah, he is.
But I like that, like I said, like EA just putting FIFA on there, which is apparently maybe even a last gen version of FIFA. Ubisoft putting out Rayman Legends and Steep, and then to Greg's point, always they're going to be like, oh, they didn't sell, we're out. You know, wouldn't it have been better to EA to be like, we put Mass Effect on it? Here, you know, because it's fucking new.
The one thing
they don't think they can make money. That's why
one wrinkled add to this, I think I think we talked about earlier, not head on, and I think applies to what we're talking about right now, because the argument has always been Nintendo fans alone can't carry a console since the Wii U, right? Personally, and I know that you are on a different side of this, right? When I think of my GameCube, I have nothing but fond memories about my GameCube, but the games I think of, with the exception of Twin Snakes, really are Nintendo exclusives: Animal Crossing, Kart, golf, stuff like that, right? But I love that system. When I think of my Wii, I think of being excited for it when it first came out, and then feeling like they marched away from me when they went more mainstream and Della stuff. But I remember Galaxy. I remember other Nintendo exclusives on it. The Wii U, I remember thinking was a piece of garbage at launch. Hated the way it worked, the way it loaded, all these different things. And I know that there's been great games on it, but like I'm saying, I'm so over that system, I never want to plug it in. So the one thing I think that is a part of this, that time will tell how much it actually matters when we talk about the Switch, is the fact that it's going to be a console again for Nintendo games, but it's a cool piece of hardware again, which is something, you know what I mean? Like my GameCube, I love that fucking controller. And Wii, I was excited about motion controlling it first because it was different, and it was turn the thing, and it didn't look like every other thing. And granted, that went in a different direction that I wasn't thrilled with. But the Wii U, right, with this gamepad that's not responsive and not multi-touch and has a shitty battery and does all this stuff I fucking hate. No, I hate this fucking thing. I don't want to do it. So that was the albatross I had to put on if I wanted to play if I wanted to play Kart. And I fucking love Mario Kart, you know what I mean? And like, I couldn't even do it. I just couldn't do it. I hated using that thing so much. Even when I was just using a Pro Controller, I still had to deal with the fucking squares and everything I hated about the Wii U. I think there is something to be said for the fact that this is going to have cool Nintendo games and be a cool piece of hardware. And I don't know how much that expands the pie, if that can help lift up the people who are like me, who are just like, I hated the Wii U. But I do think it is... It's not exactly the Wii U again in terms of like, can Nintendo games carry it by themselves?
Well, I'll just say that what I've said before is Wii is the outlier, and if you pay attention since SNES all the way down, every piece of hardware at home hardware sold worse than the one before it. So that shows you something. Whether or not it's meaningful or not, I don't know. I happen to love SNES, obviously, N64 and GameCube especially. I love GameCube. I think it's one of my favorite consoles of all time. I really think it's a special console. But you might think about it that way, but there was significant third-party support on GameCube. And anyone who's saying otherwise didn't play GameCube has no idea what they're talking about.
No, I know there was. That's why I was
right on through
up.
the very end of the console. I mean, Capcom especially was all over that fucking console. But there were others too.
Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4, Beautiful Joe. Not to mention like not almost every game, but lots of games came out on all three consoles. So and that continued all the way through. And clearly games were selling on GameCube in that way. And I have a lot of games like that. I have a fucking asinine amount of GameCube games. My whole takeaway, you might be right. The Switch clearly is a better piece of hardware than the Wii U. It doesn't get any worse than the Wii U. I mean, the Wii U is awful. But I stand by this notion that, because a lot of people are like, well, I always diminish the power argument, and you do too, where it's like, well, it's running at 720 and Zelda's like 900p or whatever on it, and it's like, I don't care. And everyone's like, well, if it's more powerful to attract third parties, and I'm like, maybe. That might be a piece of the component, but it's really not. Because if Activision went to Treyarch and was like, hey, make Call of Duty work on this, they would do it. If they had any notion that it would be supported, that Nintendo would care, and that fans would be there, they'd make that game run on a fucking toaster oven. If there could be money made there. So the whole power argument's not there. It's just that these guys have been, like, you have to look at it from the third-party perspective. They've been burned over and over again by this company, and they are out. I mean, that's the whole thing, is like, this is just as good as being out. Because think about Ubisoft last generation. At least they gave them Zombie U or whatever it was called, Zombie on PS.
Zombie.
Like, they tried to give you something, right? Now they're just like, fuck you. Basically, like and then EA made, as I said in the column, was right, made $4.5 billion in revenue and $1 billion in profit, and wants to do nothing on the Switch. Like, these guys are bean counters to the max. This is a bad omen, and whether or not it turns around. But as I said again, not one example of a console succeeding without third party support, not one. So if Switch does it, it'll be the first. And again, we have to talk about what success is. I think if this thing hits 20 million units, which is possible, I think they'd be fucking thrilled.
How much does 3DS sell?
60.
This thing needs to beat that, in my opinion. I think that
there's no way.
Besides the conference sucking, like, I think the biggest issue they had was, like, the conference focused on Joy-Con controllers, and this is a console. It's a home console. It's a home console. They should not have done that. I think Nintendo, from the get-go, should have been like, yo, this is what Nintendo is now. It's portable.
They should, they should have stopped 3DS. They should have stopped 3DS.
And then you should have totally stopped it instead of seemingly doubling down on it now and still announcing games. The Fire Emblem Direct.
Yeah, it had its own 3DS title. It's like, what the fuck,
Its own 3DS title, and it's a
mobile game too.
That's the mobile game looks fucking awesome. And February 2nd, way sooner than I thought, and on iOS and Android same day. That's an update to the Direct. A lot of people might have missed out on. Super excited about that. But Fire Emblem Echoes, which is a remake of Fire Emblem 2 that's coming to 3DS eShop. So it's like, all right, cool. I guess that they're still putting out new games there. Yeah. Then Fire Emblem Warriors, which is going to be a fall title for the Switch, also coming to the 3DS. And it's like, I get that
Omega Force getting work.
They already have the engines made because of Hyrule Warriors. So I'm like, all right, cool, whatever.
But didn't everyone hate Hyrule Warriors on 3DS? Didn't it suck?
Well, it didn't play well on 3DS. It was good on new 3DS. This one only coming to new 3DS.
Oh, interesting.
So there's that. And then they announced Fire Emblem's the Switch, for a new Switch edition coming in 2018. So I'm like, thank you. At least there's that to look forward to. But yeah, I mean, they're still talking about 3DS and they're still pushing it. And it's just like, you should have just fucking killed cut the legs off.
Hey guys,
And
we're
then
done making Wii U games. We're done making 3DS games. This is the Nintendo Switch.
because it's the fact that everybody's comparing the Switch to consoles because Nintendo's doing it too. That's the biggest issue. Why are we talking about Call of Duty on this thing? We should be comparing this to the 3DS and Vita. We should be comparing this to how much better it is than those and how awesome it is that we're getting these great experiences portably. But
I agree. That's their fault though.
But it's entirely their fault. And it sucks because when we look at the rest of the year's lineup, like talking about a lot of things like Rayman Legends, NBA 2K18, Ultra Street Fighter 2, Minecraft Story Mode, Project Sonic, and Sonic Mania, Fire Emblem Warriors, Yooka-Laylee, Shovel Knight. These are a lot of games that some of them are coming to other consoles, but I want to play them on the Switch because these are games that I want to play portably. And I want to play Sonic Mania on this, not on my PlayStation 4. That's good. Let's double down and target that audience because that's what this is. This is what I said before. This is what the Vita should have been. It's a bunch of indie games and every once in a while a quirky third-party title, but in addition to Vita, it's quality first-party games consistently being made. And we're not seeing that yet. Hopefully, once we get through this whole port, like the
Fiesta.
Yeah, the port fiesta, which I think is a great thing. I'm so happy they're doing this.
I want to hang out in the Port Fiesta.
Port
I thought it was going to be
Fiesta?
the Port Storm, but I can deal with the Port Fiesta.
No, Port Storm. I think it's a fiesta. It's going to be a good time. But it's upsetting because I played this thing at the event like, man, this is going to replace my 3DS. Not, this is going to replace my PlayStation 4.
Right.
But and I would agree with you, except for because I agree with a few points. Them keep calling it a console. It's like mistake. Mainly because of what you're saying, because then my comparisons would be totally moot. But I'm making those comparisons because they're making those comparisons.
Nope, and
by calling it a console, you're putting it in the league with the Xbox One and PS4. Yep. And guess what? Switch is now going to be in line to have to go against PS5 and the Scorpio as well. And that's when things are going to get really fucking dire if they don't. Because we're going to see Scorpio this year. I don't think it's going to come out this year, but you're going to see it this year, and then you're going to see a huge quantum leap of another company calling their thing a console, and so this is what I'm saying. Like, they don't really know what they're doing. They
and
really
honestly,
don't.
I have a couple predictions for what I think the future holds for the Switch, and these are being pretty positive on it and just hopeful at the same time. But I think that this year is going to be a lot of trying to just build the catalog with a lot of ports. Then we're going to get to E3, and I think that's when we're going to get a lot of release dates for a lot of the ports and a couple announcements for next year. And it's not going to be until the end of this year that we finally see the 3DS die off and they do finally put that behind them. And it's not going to be till 2018 that they start talking about the Switch, not as a home console device, but just as this is the Nintendo system, like whatever that means to you. And it's going to start to find its own niche. And I do think that's when third parties are going to be like, okay, this is just the portable system. We're not trying to port our Mass Effects to it. We're trying to either make something from the ground up or not. I think that's the only chance it has at getting things like what we saw at the GameCube with such strong third-party support. They just need to look at it as a different type of system.
And this GameCube support, remember, came with fewer than 25 million units sold over the entire life of the console, which is abysmal. Outsold literally 6-1 by PS2. And yet Capcom was still interested in going there, and others were still interested in going there. Publishers were still interested in going there because there was money to be made there. And that's the thing that I really do mean it. If Ubisoft was like, we want Watch Dogs 2 to run on this thing and we think it could sell, they would make it work. Power makes it easier. There was a piece that was circulating today about Respawn basically laughing when they asked if Titanfall 2 could run in there. And I'm like, I don't think EA would let you guys be laughing too much if they thought you'd make a fucking buck on there, Then you'd figure it out. It just makes it more expensive and therefore harder. So there is a disparity there that I think is relevant and important, but it is not that important. Wii was significantly weaker than PS3, and there were still games between those two consoles. So because they sold there.
Yeah.
So I want Nintendo to succeed, and the only thing that's changed in me is that I just don't believe anything they say anymore. Now they're like, this is gonna be great. I'm like, I don't believe you. Now I don't believe a fucking word you say, and you'll show me now. Because I, for some reason, put a ton of faith in this machine, and you guys showed me that you really don't know what you're doing. So, and you showed the world that, that as well. And yeah, Zelda looks great, and Mario looks great. My question again is, then what? Then what?
I mean, the big
Splatoon is not good enough.
My big question as we talk about the year of Nintendo is, does Mario really come out this year?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
That would be a disaster. That would be a disaster.
From everything I've heard, Mario is done.
Okay.
And they're holding it to the fall for a big fall game and for something to drive towards. But
okay, good.
All the rumors pointed to this being a launch game. And from everything I've heard is that it is very close to completion, if not already done. So.
I'll say this, and I don't know how popular it'll be, and I don't know if it will resonate with anyone, but if I were them, you can't make this decision now, but 6 months ago, a year ago, I would have been like, we're releasing Zelda on Wii U last fall when it was clearly probably ready. Then we're going to put the Switch out the fall after, and we'll put Zelda on there too, but it'll launch with a Mario game. A 3D Mario game, the first 3D Mario game since our fucking bonkers selling Galaxy series that everyone's going to be really excited about. In that time, we will be able to get everything that we do not have ready for this console ready to go. We'll have voice chat ready to go. We'll get rid of the inane excuses why we don't have Netflix, which runs on fucking everything on there and all these video devices. We'll get video streaming going on there and video capture on there. We'll get a trophy system in there. We'll do all these kinds of things. Give themselves time. They should have done that. I really do feel like this thing's being rushed to market, and I do not understand why. And I think they're hurting the console, because if power is not part of the equation, which it shouldn't be, another 6 months shouldn't hurt it. It should only help it, and it should allow them to engender more support as well. And I think that, we'll see how it lives or dies. But I think that if they can get, I think Pachter was saying between 6 and 8 million in its first year. I think if they can hit 8 million, I think they'd be fucking thrilled. I'll be surprised if they do, but that'd be awesome. Yeah. And I wish them the best. I hope fucking Switch sells 500 million units, becoming better selling than every other console before it combined, Greg. But I don't know. I'm scared for them, and I'll be interested to see how this kind of rolls and adopts.
Yeah. I disagree in the sense that I'm happy it's coming out so soon, like so ridiculously soon. Like the fact that this thing's weeks away blows my mind, because I think that we just need to power through the launch period and just hopefully get to what this system is really going to be. And I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that right out the gate it had all these things and it was what we all dreamed it was going to be. It's not, though. So I'm like, all right, I need to do exactly what I did with the 3DS and just kind of hope they have a relaunch period, and I think that they have to, especially since it will be their only console eventually.
They do have a relaunch period. It's April, Dry Bones.
Yeah, Dry Bones. April 28th.
Day after my birthday, but I'll let it go.
There you go. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Prove me wrong, Nintendo. Do it.
Final topic of the day. I want to talk about Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
HD 2.8.
I like how you said final topic of the day, and Kevin shook his head in disgust.
I went along today. Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. How's that?
Rolls off the tongue.
I played it. I beat it. Or I beat at least the sections that matter to me that I haven't played before. This game, obviously, you guys, I don't know if you are familiar. This is a collection of Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. That was the one that came out on 3DS a couple years back. This is Kingdom Hearts Point 2, Birth by Sleep, A Fragmentary Passage.
Again, rolls off the tongue.
Which is essentially the
remake of the PSP, right?
This is the most exciting part of this package. It is a new game. It is kind of a Ground Zeroes-esque.
Is this the one that runs on the engine for the next Kingdom Hearts?
Yes, this is running in the Unreal 4 engine.
Okay.
So it looks like Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to look, but this is a sequel to Birth by Sleep, which is the PSP game. And it kind of ties into where we're going to be playing Kingdom Hearts 3 story-wise or whatever. And then Kingdom Hearts, little X sign back cover. I've heard people say it's key, but I don't know. I don't really understand.
They renamed the X.
It's key. They should spell it.
Yeah.
Key.
They didn't, though. They didn't do that. And that's a movie. It's a CG movie that is kind of a retelling with
explains it all.
Added story points. No, of the mobile game that came out recently, Kingdom Hearts Key, whatever. And it is like the most early part of the story. Like it goes back in the timeline earlier than we've ever seen so far. So I watched the movie and I beat the Point 2 Birth by Sleep Fragmentary Passage. Took me about 2 hours. So again, it's more of a Ground Zeroes experience, or like Final Fantasy Sky, the demo that they put out years ago, Final Fantasy 15. It's and Dream Drop Distance I played before, so I didn't get into it now and didn't really feel the need to. Is it worth full price for essentially just the Point 2 Birth by Sleep? Because I doubt many of you want to replay Dream Drop Distance. No, not necessarily. It is cool playing how Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to feel. I liked it. The graphics are real pretty. The environments are awesome. The characters themselves look a little off because like Donald and Mickey and all the more the I don't know the difference between the anthropomorphic like humans and like anthropomorphic animals. Like the animals look off because there's something about the humans have more like features and stuff that like I'm like, all right, cool, I buy this look on them. Like there's more detail, but like with Mickey, whose face is really just like a circle, with like other little circles on it, it kind of looks off. I feel like it needs more. The engine it's using and the style it's using, it could use a bit more shadows, I think. Like, it doesn't look cell shaded, and I think it could have helped if it did. Like, it could just use a bit more depth in some of the looks, because it looks a little too clean for my taste, especially when the environments look so nice. From a gameplay perspective, it's Kingdom Hearts, and man, it's been a while since I've played a core Kingdom Hearts game. And it feels good. It's exactly what I wanted, and especially having just come off Final Fantasy 15. Which is a very action-heavy game compared to other Final Fantasies, and a lot of people compare it to Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, oh, no, Kingdom Hearts. I like this shit.
Yeah.
And I loved the battle system in 15, but this is what I wished it was. You know, this is when you first saw the demos of Versus 13 back in the day. I was like, this is the type of gameplay that I fell in love with Kingdom Hearts over a decade ago. This fragmentary passage, you play as Aqua, who's one of the main characters in Birth by Sleep. It's great getting to play as her again. Last time was when Birth by Sleep came out, which I think was like 2007. So it's definitely been a while. Story-wise, you don't get too much in this. It's a little over the top Kingdom Hearts-esque in terms of dialogue. And to be honest, I found myself being the least interested I've ever been.
Wow. You finally grown up?
Just because it's been a way, and I think there's a very, very big reason for that. I feel like on one side of it is Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 even were really about Disney. It's about going to the Disney World. It's doing like meeting the Disney characters, and you know, everything had to do with that. As the series went on with, they're not spin-offs, but with the side stories, it got more and more into its own convolutedness of here's the original characters and here's the heartless version of them and here's the, like, I don't even remember all the names of all the different shit it is, but it's like there's three dudes that look exactly the same, but they have different names and they're all different versions of the same person. And it got to a point that I'm playing this, I'm like, I do not remember anything at all. And hearing the dialogue in this game, I'm like, oh man, I don't even care to try to figure it out. And I know that's an insult to a lot of people that love this, but it's just like, it just feels like when I played through Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 a long time ago, I was obviously younger and in a different place. And that doesn't take away even now from those games because I love them so much, but I feel like I put up with all the weird anime kind of just tropes because I liked the gameplay and Disney stuff so much.
Yeah.
But when it is just melodrama and like talking about the darkness for the 10th time and my heart this and the light there, and it's just like, holy shit, this is bad.
Yeah,
this is really bad. But then as it went on, things starting to get a bit more familiar, and there's Cinderella's castle and Snow White's forest and all that shit. I'm like, all right, cool. Can't wait to see this in Kingdom Hearts 3. But I think that's the problem, is this was such a
coming 2020.
Yeah, such a demo. And such like a little like, oh, hearing Goofy was something special for sure.
You motherfuckers down us.
I don't know. I was just a little let down in that sense because I want to love this franchise more than anything, but it's like it just feels like it's giving me reasons to not
stay away.
But as it ended, I can't wait for Kingdom Hearts 3 even more. So I'm like, all right, cool, because it does seem like it's going to be giving me those things that I want so much. Like they pretty heavy-handedly explain, like we're getting back to all that stuff. Like we're moving past this whole side story characters that we made up shit. And the end of this game, the 2-hour experience. Well, throughout it, there's boss fights and they're super awesome. This is kind of a Kingdom Hearts game minus the other going to the different worlds, just condensed down into 2 hours. To that extent, I like it a lot because it's you start off with very limited abilities and you gain all the different abilities, whether it's being able to roll or jump and do your little glide thing and all that's the combos and stuff. You gain them all really quickly. So I appreciate that. So I did feel a nice sense of progression with the battle systems and all that. Camera still just as iffy as it's always been, but that's what happens when you're doing a third-person action game with hundreds of characters on the screen at once with the Heartless. But the boss fights are super epic, especially the last 2 or 3 in it. And I was really impressed by their scale. It reminded me of like God of War 3. So that's cool. And there's a twist at the end that made it all kind of worth it for me. Or
Spider-Man?
From a story. No, I wish. From a story perspective, where I was like, oh shit, cool. So this is how it ties into Kingdom Hearts.
Been dead all along.
Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Mickey's in it a lot, which I really like, because Mickey's more of like the the Yoda character of the series, where it's like the moments he's there really matter. But with this, because you are Aqua, who's a bit higher leveled than like Sora or whoever. I'm sure you're familiar.
Totally.
Them being side by side makes a bit more sense in a way that's not just him saving your ass. So that's super cool. It was hilarious playing the game with Gia cooking, because like she just keeps seeing this stuff. She's like, wow, the writing in this is fucking horrible. And I'm like, yeah, you just got to put up with it, whatever. And I just keep playing. And then all of a sudden she hears Mickey talk. She's like, wait a minute, Mickey Mouse is in this game? So that was hilarious. But anyway, and the movie was just even more shit, where I'm just like, I just don't understand who the audience is for this, for like all of this weird backstory stuff. And there's obviously a lot of people, because people fucking love this game and love the franchise. But I just like, there's something I love about the franchise, and then there's all the other shit. And I feel like this game really made me realize that there's a lot more that I put up with to get to the things I like than I think is really worth the time overall. But going back to it, love Kingdom Hearts 1, love Kingdom Hearts 2, and 3, hopefully is that more condensed experience of here's the things I like about it. Because I feel like this is kind of the answer of making all the side stories worth it, combining together in a way that leads us to the next one.
This is the Avengers.
Kind of. Well, Kingdom Hearts 3 will be the Avengers.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. This is the Thor movie that you had to watch that you didn't really want to.
Dark World.
Did you see the story that they released about Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 7 R? Like, I think it was maybe a week ago, where they were like, not anytime soon. It was basically a story of just them being like, because everyone thinks it's soon, and I'm like, no, of course it's not. Of course it's not soon. That's why they're releasing all these things now, to give you a little piecemeal approach. Clearly, Kingdom Hearts has a big fan base. I just feel bad for everyone waiting for this game. It feels like forever, and it's going to be forever more.
So Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue is going to be out by the time you're watching this. And then Kingdom Hearts HD Remix 1.5, 2.5. I don't know what they're actually calling it. It's coming on PlayStation 4. And that's all of the Kingdom Hearts games thus far in HD on PS4, minus the stuff that I just mentioned earlier for this. So definitely cool. If you haven't played Dream Drop Distance, I do think it's worth it, because that is a good game, and experiencing it in HD is going to be awesome, in addition to Birth by Sleep. But just buying it for Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage, I don't think it's necessarily worth it. Okay. But if you're super into the kind of story and narrative of this whole thing, there is a cool twist that I do think pulls it all together. So it would be worth it for you in that case. So now, as always, we're going to you over at kindoffunny.com/gamescast topic, where you can leave your topic.
This episode won't end, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Kevin's so angry. All over there. Sick as it.
When did we start the last topic? Okay.
Jesus.
I've never seen him sound worse than this. All right. We got a question from Ghost Jacobs. If you guys could get the inside story on any canceled game, PT, Agent, Scalebound, etc., which one would you choose?
Agent is a really good choice, since it involves Sony and Rockstar, and that would be all sorted and fucked up.
I guess I would say PT, because I want to know everything with Kojima and Konami. Because I don't care so much about that game as much as their relationship deteriorating. But it'd be awesome to hear like how Norman Reedus and Guillermo del Toro are on board, and then like it all starts falling apart, and what those conversations are between Kojima and them. Yeah. Maybe I'll ask at RTX Sydney.
Games wise, I'd probably say Star Wars 1313, just because that looked so awesome, and it was so exciting, and then for it to just not happen is really sad. Yeah. But in terms of like juicy stories and shit, I think PT is the definitive answer. StarCraft Ghost, I don't care too much about StarCraft, but that was such an interesting development as well.
Sure.
That was a long time ago, though. Johns Bernardino, what flaw could a game have that would break the experience for you no matter how good the rest of it is?
I'm not much of a frame rate savant, but skipping or like framey games in terms of like inconsistent frame rates definitely ruin them for me. If you're going to run at 25 frames, that's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. But just run at 25 frames. You know,
yep. I'd be the inverse of Colin, and if it was only inverted, I'm like, I can't play this. I can't. I don't care how great this game's supposed to be. I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm really picky about controls. For example, in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, I just couldn't keep playing it because when you drove the car, you had to use the analog stick. You couldn't use the D-pad. And there's just something about third-person driving where I like the precision of just the D-pad kind of just moving over slightly, so that the analog just always felt off to me. And in the beginning of that game, you play on the bicycle, and it was the same way where you had to use the analog. And I was just like, I just can't do this. Like, it just bothers me. And I know it's such a nitpicky, stupid thing, but whenever a game has one little control aspect that I'm like, ooh, this just fucking feels wrong.
Yeah,
it gets to the point that I'm just gonna stop playing. Sean Zulu, how long and crazy have your most insane gaming binges been?
I don't know. I haven't had a gaming binge probably since I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, the one I go back to is one story I've told a million times where Poe we both bought NCAA football that year, and he brought his PS2 over, and we set up a second TV downstairs in that card table, and I'll never forget walking him out of the house that morning, and as the sun was rising, I was like, fuck.
Yeah. All the Halo games we had crazy binges for, whether it was Halo 1, me and my friends would just play Capture the Flag for fucking hours and hours and hours, but then when Halo 2 and Halo 3 and 4 came out, we all got together and played through the campaign in one sitting, and that was always a really intense time, because I mean, those games, they're not that long, but some of them go upwards of 12 hours, and like sitting straight through, like we would not stop till we beat it. So those were definitely some of my more insane things. Smash Bros, I mean, I'm sure I played that game for hours on end at one time. Specifically, probably Melee would be the most, but I'm not a binge type of guy when it comes to gaming. Like, it hits a point where I'm like, all right,
I gotta do something else.
I need to sleep.
I mean, that was the whole thing with the wrestling N64 games, where I would take the day off school the day after they came out, so I could play as long as I could, then sleep downstairs in the TV, video game room, and then wake up and play more.
Yeah. Movie Buff wants to know, with today's climate, what are games that you think do politics correctly? I feel like this is kind of an easy answer, but I think Metal Gear Solid overall has always done a good job of presenting different opinions, as convoluted as they are, and different perspectives on politics and thinking that way. And it wasn't really until Metal Gear Solid 2 that I even really ever thought about our political system, or ever thought about our government not being good, and the government like doing shady shit. I was probably 11 at the time, so it's not like that crazy, but like that was a game that made me think about what it means to be a president and the people close to the president and all that stuff.
I mean, it's funny because I've been pondering the idea of doing politics in games and why it's good and why there should be more. Because I hate when people say, to keep your politics and your social stances and everything on the games. And I'm like, fuck you. Like that shit, it makes good art. That shit makes for good storytelling. If you don't want politics and social views and points of view in your games, that's part of the reason that you're holding your medium back. That's like saying, keep your politics out of like every piece of literature that's ever been written. It's silly. And so I think that there is a lot of subtle politics in a lot of games. And I like the way games like Banner Saga and even Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff deal with fictional politics. And I think that kind of stuff's important, but I think that it's essential that we let this stuff seek, whether it's realistic or based on real stuff like Metal Gear, or based totally on fictional stuff like a lot of the games we play. I think it's important that it's there because I think it's a good storytelling device. That's why House of Cards is so fucking good. That's why, but it doesn't have to be overt like I'm pro-choice or I'm pro-life politics. Small p politics can mean almost anything, and small s social views or the way you look at the world, that that engineers the way we play games, and that engineers the way we receive stories. And so I think lots of games do that really well. And I think we talked about The Last of Us as another game that deals with a pretty significant social issue very well, so well that it never even touched on in the first game, and it only expanded on in the DLC, and it made you look at the entire other game differently. And I think that that's cool.
Yeah, I think indie games are doing it. A lot of indie games are in the same way Colin's talking about, that they're art. So people are bringing their perspective to it. I'm playing through 2064 read-only memories right now still. And one of the big things that's going on in that universe is genetic modification. And if that makes you less than human, and what if you're doing is people who are doing it, Jim Sterling's character in the game is a guy who's fiercely anti that movement, right? And feels that those people aren't human anymore. They're no longer human once they go through this genetic modification or whatever. And to hear that character's arguments and then talk to the people who've been genetically modified and why they did it. It's not, some people are doing it, yes, just for, giving themselves cat ears and tails and stuff because that's their kink or whatever. But then there's this one character in the game who you meet who's super, a bitch when you first meet her, but it's, based on the fact that she had to do this to stay alive, but she's being looped in with all these other people. So why would we want to shut? And it's like this really fascinating thing that is goofy on its top level, right? Of like, oh, people are turning themselves into fucking cats or whatever. It's like this next step for furries or whatever. But then to get into it and start thinking about it and start applying it back to the politics in our world, you see those parallels.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we keep telling stories like that and challenge people and challenge their preconceptions. I think that's what, like, imagine BioShock if it wasn't political. It would be impossible to tell that story. But it's one of the great stories ever told in games. And it's a bastardization of libertarianism. And I have libertarian leanings, and I'm not offended by that. I don't care. Yeah. It's interesting. You know?
Well, that's when games are at their best, right? Or stories are at their best when they get to put us in somebody else's shoes and challenge the way we think about something.
Yeah, and even say that it's wrong, and even say that it's
not
this
agree.
is the end result of your point of your beliefs. And I'm like, well, I don't agree, but it's very interesting. You know, it's about having. You can tell when someone's really confident in the way they believe, and when they just don't want to be challenged and they want to just be told children's stories, basically. And so, more politics, the better.
Yeah,
and I mean that in the small p way. You know all about the small p.
Damn.
I don't.
Of course, it's the Mushroom Kingdom as well. They handle that shit well. This was from my dude, David Blodell. Shout out to you. Where are all the 3DSs? It's like Nintendo just quietly stopped making them or something. None within 250 miles of me.
Damn.
Good signs. I've been seeing a lot of these people tweeting me pictures of just like their targets and there being no 3DSs. So that's good.
Stop making 3DS games.
Just fucking stop. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the only
Similar to
thing.
Vita, right? All right, there's whatever.
Yeah. And then final question for the
I thought you meant where are people playing them? Because that's the other thing too. Mine just sits down there. I never touch one.
I see people playing them all the time.
I was going through. I have I don't know, hundreds of PS3 and PS4 games on the shelf and Vita games, and there was my 3DS was on top of one of them, but I was taking one out and it just like fell onto the rug or whatever, and I was like, oh, there you are. I haven't seen you in a while.
This one's from Barack Attack. He says, Thumper. Haven't played Thumper. Play Thumper, then talk about it next week. Kind of funny Kevin knows. You guys play Thumper?
I did, yeah.
What do y'all think of Thumper?
It's interesting. It's like a very abstract musical game, VR music game.
Yeah,
I loved Thumper.
Yeah. Yeah, I
simple.
played it. I think I played it at some PSVR demo, and it's on. And it's been one of those that I see on my unit all the time. And I was like, when I set up that VR room, maybe I'll fuck around with it. And now it's set up.
Thumper, one of my favorite games I played on PSVR, but it's not because of the VR stuff. I don't think that's really necessary. It kind of adds to the whole effect of it. But the game, it's just a fun game. But I do feel like it lacks a depth that rhythm games need in order to do that
what's the
level.
nutshell pitch of what's happening in the game?
You're kind of going along on a roller coaster style thing, and you just need to dodge obstacles random.
But in time with the music,
and yeah, it's in time to music, but it's like in a fairly indirect way where there's just music happening, and like you can see the pattern where it's kind of like a much more pretty, less cartoony, dumbed down version of Parappa the Rapper, where like you know like when you're supposed to hit the things, but based on you see 3 obstacles, so it's like boom, 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 based on how far apart they are. But
gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't beat it, but I played a lot of it, and it hit a point where I'm like, all right, cool, I get it. And I don't need to keep playing. Yeah. But it's a lot of fun, though, and it is good. And if you have PSVR, there's not much else to play, so you might as well get it. Try it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ben, Kind of Funny Gamescast.
It's over, Kevin.
Until next time, I love you.